All right, welcome. This is BenThere with myself, your host, Ben Vogel. Thanks for joining. First of all, thank you for joining on a Memorial Day weekend if you stateside. We've got a good one for you today. I'm excited about it. We're going to get to that in just a bit. But as always, I want to start by thanking everybody for paying attention, basically, more than anything. The BenThere.org, the Facebook, the YouTube, everything else. Yeah, whoops. Yeah, we're high class here. If you heard that. So, but anyway, long story short, thank you all for joining wherever you're joining us from. This is cool. It's been basically a fun. I never intended on this to happen, but hey, it happened, and we're gonna roll with it. So we'll keep rolling with it as long as everybody watches. But I just wanted to make sure everybody understands, real quickly, the concept of this initially was just to kind of chat and get through quarantine. And now it's branched out to making sure everybody understands that everybody's got a story. And those of us that grew up overseas, we definitely have a different story, but it's still a story. And my guest today is no different from that. In fact, I cannot wait to talk to her. I've known her a long time. I don't know if she can hear me. Can you hear me on the other end? Because I can hear an echo.
Yeah. Oh, you can hear an echo?
I can hear an echo. Yeah, I can hear my voice, which isn't that appealing. So I don't know if you.
I can't hear. You sound totally fine.
Okay, good. Good. Then we'll go with your end. So I'll try to lean this way.
You're gonna be super annoyed with yourself here.
Oh, no, that has nothing to do with the show, Debbie. I'm annoyed with myself anyway. But let me quickly introduce my guest today, who I've known. This is another one I've known for over 30 years, if you can believe that, Deb. I mean, you were.
I'm like 32, so.
Yeah. Which I'm older. We'll go ahead and say that, right?
Totally.
Third grade. I think you were in third grade when I graduated. So.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But no. But let me kind of read your bio real quick, and then I'll let you fill in the blanks here. Okay. But Debby Krieger Bever originally moved to Taipei, Taiwan in 1977. For the record, Debbie, I was 2. But we won't get into that. Yeah. And it was quite the adventure for the Krieger family, with the U.S. military still in Taiwan at the time. Taipei American School was packed with American students. Everything changed in 1979 when overnight the American population in Taiwan literally disappeared. So began the roaring 80s, which is when my family moved to Taipei, where many businessmen and their families lived in the wild, wild East. In Debbie's opinion, this was the greatest decade in Taipei, and having lived there myself, I will totally concur. Being a TCK, Debbie decided to. I jumped a bit. But after her Taipei American School days, she moved to the States, back to college, where she went to a couple different colleges, and we're going to get into that.
Yeah.
We're going to get into that. But like you said, it's just to see what different states look like, because you spent so much time overseas, right? So. Debbie eventually graduated from the University of Puget Sound in Tacoma, Washington, with a degree in psychology. After graduation, Debbie and her husband, Grant, who also attended Jakarta International School, let's see here. He was a Marine, so you guys moved around a lot, right?
Oh, yeah.
Finally settling down in Bend, Oregon with your 2 boys. But I want to make sure everybody hears this clearly. Since then, and even before that, you've lived in Oregon, you've lived in Washington, you've lived in Shenzhen, China, Shanghai, China, Hong Kong, and obviously Taipei. Your husband also did a deployment to Afghanistan. And I don't know if that was with the Marines with Singapore or.
No, that was after. Yeah, private.
Okay, so we'll definitely get into that in just a little bit. But that kind of gives you a background. I've known Debbie, I want to say, since 1986. Our parents were very good friends. And we'll talk about your dad in just a little bit, and obviously your mom. But having said that, I always start these shows with the guests kind of filling in the blanks. So, Deb, welcome to the show. First of all, thank you.
No, I'm so excited to be here.
No, this is fun. This is this definitely is fun. But I want you to kind of fill in the last maybe 20. I usually say 20 years. I'm not trying to age you, because you are younger than me. We've made that very clear.
Totally.
Right, but if you could just maybe fill in the last 25 years, what have you been up to since I gave the brief Cliff Note version of your bio, but if you could tell us all.
Since college, I guess? Or
yeah, what you been up to since you graduated from TAS? Go ahead.
Okay, so I started college at Ithaca College in upstate New York because for some reason I thought I would like the East Coast. I had no idea. I'd never been to the East Coast ever. And I was like, yeah, I'll try it. Let's try the East Coast. All my family's in California, and I was like, man, I'm going to go for it. So I went to Ithaca College in upstate New York, had never seen snow my whole life. I was running track, never seen snow.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it snows in Taiwan very rarely.
Yamishan, right up in the mountain.
Yeah, but not often. So I never really saw it. And then in like November, freshman year, it started snowing, and it didn't stop snowing until like finals in May. And it was not fun at all. And then I was running track, and they had this like truck with an ice scraper on it, and they would have to scrape the track off so we could have practice. And I was like, well, this is bullshit. Like, what? Why am I here? I came from the tropics. Oh, sorry, language. I forgot. Oh yeah,
no, you're good. Yeah, we're adults. You can say whatever you want on this.
It's
all free. Yeah, you're good.
Bullshit. Yeah, it was very cold. And I did not like East Coast people very much. I just didn't get it. Like Taiwan has this like island vibe, which I noticed more as like being back in Taiwan just recently. But Taiwan is super chill, and like I'm a West Coast kind of California, like everybody's super chill. And the East Coast is this frenetic kind of crazy pace. And man, I didn't last long. So I was 2 years at Ithaca College. And then I did a year at the University of Oregon, and which I loved, but I was dating my husband who was in school in Florida. And so I was like,
yeah, that's a little bit of it's a commute.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and we didn't have cell phones, right? I mean, this was like the freaking Stone Ages. So my telephone bill every month was like $400. And first of all, my dad at first, I was like, I need to borrow money. I mean, I had an allowance, like a college allowance of like, I don't know, $150 or something. And I was just like, holy shit. Like I was broke, so broke, because I kept calling Grant all the time. At like 20 cents a minute or whatever it was back then. It was terrible. So I transferred to Virginia Commonwealth University in Richmond, Virginia. And that was like totally, I was like, man, this is cool. I'm going to try the South. Like I didn't know Virginia, thought it was the South. It's kind of the South, sort of. That was a total eye opener, because it's in Richmond, Virginia, which is sort of, it's a city, but it's like it's kind of a dark city. Like there's a lot of crime, and it was a little scary. And my roommates were like, don't walk outside at night. You've got to be careful. And I was totally oblivious. And I used to get followed home from class. Like it was terrible. And I was a total idiot. So that was really fun. I actually really enjoyed it. Yeah. But it was like, this isn't for me. I don't like the South. So then I decided, well, I'm going to go back west. And my dad at this point, like he's got cancer, and he's like sick. And I remember calling him and being like, hey, I'm going to try Washington. And he's like, his voice was like this. And he's like, God damn it, Debbie. What the fuck are you doing? You're killing me. And I was like, what? I'm not killing you. Like, the cancer's killing you, not me. It's not my fault. Like, Jesus. So he was not happy with me. But then I was like, I made it into this big thing. Like, Dad, I'm coming home so I can see you more. So I can see you. He's like, yeah, whatever. So anyway, University of Puget Sound. So then I'm in Washington, and I actually loved it there, and graduated from University of Puget Sound. And then Grant was commuting to see me. And then we decided, so Grant was a little bit ahead of me, because of course you lose credits every time you transfer. Whoa, big surprise.
I did it once, and I get it totally. I left like a whole year. Yeah.
So my psychology degree, which is like so easy, should have been a 4-year degree, which took 6 years, which my dad was super happy about. And then, so Grant had already graduated, and he was in the Marine Corps. And so he came out to visit me in Tacoma, and he was like, we should really just get married. And I was like, what? Really? And he's
Wow.
like, yeah, because then we get more money from the military if we're married. And I was like, yes, score. So we literally in the middle of, I was in choir class with Heidi Stegman from TAS.
In college?
In college. Yeah.
Wow.
I was auditioning. Here's a crazy story. I'm at Puget Sound auditioning for the choir. And I'm on stage and I'm doing my solo and I'm auditioning. And there's all these people in the audience. And this woman stands up and goes, oh my God, Debby Krieger! Like while I'm singing.
Yeah.
And it's Heidi.
I remember Heidi.
Holy shit. Yeah. And I'm like, woo. Anyway, we were both in the choir, which was super fun. That's awesome. Yeah. So we got married in the middle of choir class. I just told my conductor, I'm like, hey, I gotta go. I'm getting married in like a half an hour. So I got my two completely hungover friends as witnesses. And my friend Susanna was best man. And my other friend was my maid of honor, Jethro, the guy. So we had this lovely courthouse wedding. And then we got like $800 extra a month from the military.
There you go. Hey.
Which was awesome. Yeah.
All right. And then what happened? Yeah, then what happened?
So then, let's see. After I graduated, then we didn't tell anyone. The only person I told that I got married, in the whole world, was Scott McCann.
Scott, he apparently might be watching tonight. So go ahead and
Scott can keep a secret.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
He's a good dude. He's a good man.
Scott, I did not tell my parents. I did not tell Grant's parents. Like no one knew. No one knew we'd gotten married. Because my dad, I was like, Grant and I are getting married, and he's like, great, because he was sick, and he's like, we're gonna plan this big wedding in Oregon. And I was like, oh, awesome. So he and my mom were planning this big wedding for me.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to be like, oh, snap, I'm already married. So we didn't tell him.
Wow.
And I didn't even like, he died and then he never knew. I told my family after he died that we had already been married. Isn't that terrible?
Wow.
We've been married a full year before we had our fake wedding.
It's terrible, and yet knowing you, totally get it, right?
Right.
No, that's a great story. So okay, so after that, what happened? Yeah, keep going. Keep going.
After that, we moved to Florida because Grant was in flight school in the Marine Corps. So we were in Florida. And actually, it was really crazy because Grant was going through Marine training at the same time Scott was. So they were one company apart. So it was really crazy because I would go visit Grant in Quantico in Virginia, and Scott would be there, which is kind of cool. Actually, Scott was there when Grant proposed to me, like officially proposed to me. I think Scott was in the bathroom. There. Yeah. And we were sharing a hotel room.
Of course you were, right? Of course you were.
Because Scott like crashed my sister's wedding.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's Scott McCann.
Yeah, it's Scott McCann. I would expect nothing different. Yeah.
I know. He's family. So yeah, crazy. So we were living in West Palm Beach, Florida. And then after that we were in Mississippi, which was Meridian, Mississippi, which was a freaking hellhole. Like, that movie Mississippi Burning?
Yeah.
Okay, so they filmed it. It's based on the county that we lived in.
Okay.
It was great. So I worked at this little local restaurant because you couldn't really get a job in Mississippi. Like, they wouldn't hire military wives and stuff. And I worked at a restaurant, the fanciest restaurant in town. It was called the Hungry Heifer.
Of course it was.
And I was a heifer girl.
Of course you were.
It was amazing. Fancy. So here's a good thing. So our chef was this old Black woman. She was amazing. And she said to me, like, the first day I started working, she was like, girl, you look ethnic. And I was like, shit, really? Like, what do you mean? And she's like, are you a Christian?
Oh, no.
Like, nope.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm Jewish. Why? And she was like, oh, no, don't tell anyone. Don't tell anyone. And I was like, what? Like, totally oblivious to the fact I'm in like this tiny town in Mississippi. I was like, oh my God. She's like, don't tell anyone. So she gave me the name of this church in like Tuscaloosa, Alabama. She's like, you got to tell everyone that's the church you go to, because nobody in Meridian goes to that church. She's like, so if people ask you, because they do all the time in the South, they're like, girl, what church do you go to? And so I'd be like, Tuscaloosa First Baptist Church, ma'am. So I was like, I don't know. I know nothing about anything. It was terrible. So living in the South was quite interesting for me. Yeah. And that's where my son was born.
I'm laughing with you because I was gonna save the humor comment for later, but this is awesome. So just keep going.
Yeah.
Keep going.
So I had my older son in Mississippi, and little me, like I'm 4'11", if anyone that doesn't know me, and I gained 60 pounds when I was pregnant with Cordell. It was like the excuse for me to just eat whatever the fuck I could find. And there was like a joke going around the squadron, and Grant squadron on base, that there was no bacon in the commissary, because I would go to the commissary and I'd buy like 6 packs of bacon, and then I would go home and I would cook it up and I would eat all of it. Like it was disgusting. It was bizarre how much I ate. But the whole joke was like, the guys would be like, I went to the commissary and I just wanted some freaking bacon, and freaking Beaver's wife is eating all the bacon. I was like, I was huge.
I'm crying, by the way. I'm crying. You make it. Yeah. You'll have to repost that picture. So yeah.
I had that. It's called pitting edema, where you can like go like that and you make big dents in your skin, and then it takes like a few minutes for the dents to poof back up. Because I was so swollen and filled with fluid. It was gross. Anyway, it was hot. It was super hot. Grant was like, "Man, I'm glad I'm married."
That was worth the $800, right?
Yeah, totally. So worth the extra money every month.
Oh,
awful.
Okay, we're a whole. Hold on, we're a whole like 10 minutes into this, and my throat's already sore. So keep doing what you're doing. This is awesome.
Okay, so then he did his time in the military, and then we lived in see Michael Clendenin.
Can you see that? Yeah.
Hi, Mr. Clendenin. So then we were in Daytona Beach, Florida, after Grant got out of the military, and that's where he
What year are we talking? What time are we talking?
So this is 1999.
Okay, so if you were in Daytona, where was he going to flight school? Was it at Embry-Riddle?
After the military.
Okay.
Yeah. So after Meridian, he went to. Then there was all kinds of like he got out early actually, which was kind of nice. There was all this shit in the military at the time, so he got out. Was flying civilian in Daytona Beach, Florida.
Okay.
Yeah, so we were in Daytona. That's where Cole, my second son, was born. And thanks, Randy. And so
Randy, we need to talk, buddy. It's been too long. So
yeah, so we lived in Daytona for just like a year, and then moved up to Ohio. Grant got a job flying. As he calls it, he was flying canceled checks, and actual human shit in Ohio, because basically, I don't know if you know this.
What does that mean?
Well, there's companies that used to be canceled checks from banks like overnight to different places, different banks all over the country, and then they also would fly medical like blood samples and people's fecal samples. So one night he came home and he just smelled like shit. Like he smelled like literally like shit. And there had been a lot of turbulence, and they were like, ba-boom, ba-boom, ba-boom. And some of the fecal samples broke in the box in the back of the plane. And then they had to clean it up. And it was like, this is before COVID, obviously. He had, poo on him, different people's poo. So he had a glamorous job at the time. It's much better now. So we were in Ohio for like 2 years. Then we were back in Florida, in West Palm Beach, Florida for 3 years, I think. And then we were like, man, we've had it with the East Coast. Yeah. We had just kind of had it. And so we decided to move back to Bend, Oregon.
Okay. Before you go any further, where did Grant go to flight school?
Grant went to Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University.
Yeah.
In
Okay.
Beach,
So
Florida,
that's where Tim went. Yeah. So I know it pretty well. We actually.
Yeah. I was one time I was visiting Grant on campus, and I see Tim walk by, and I was like, Tim Wenger, and it was like the only time I ever ran into him on campus one time. And let me tell you, I loved Embry-Riddle because there were like 5 girls on that whole campus, and those girls had like mustaches and like didn't shave, and they like those girls were hot. They were hot. So I would go to Riddle and I would walk around, and I was like, and you'd be like, hey, what's your name? It was like you got hit on every 30 seconds. It was the biggest ego boost in the whole world. I loved going to Riddle.
Well, I spent a couple spring breaks down with him. Jason, I don't know if you remember the name, but Jason Hotfinger and a couple of us, we actually he wasn't there yet, so you probably maybe don't. But we were in North Carolina at the time, and we would spend our spring breaks down with him.
Yeah.
At Embry-Riddle. So yeah.
Yeah, it was a blast. There were some good bars and some really gross strip clubs. It was like Daytona's not classy.
I don't know what you're talking about. So
yeah, of course.
Yeah,
of course.
No idea.
yeah.
Okay, keep going. This is the Debby Krieger show, folks.
Yeah. Do you know how Grant and I met?
I want to get into that. I know because I've talked to you and Grant both, but because I know you both. But we're gonna get into that later. So save that if you can. Save that right now, and then we'll talk about that later.
Yeah. So we went to Bend. We came out to Bend, which is where my parents were. Or my dad had already died, but my mom was in Bend. So we were in Bend, and Grant started flying corporate out of the little Bend airport here. And so he was flying here, let's see, for like maybe 2 or 3 years before he went to Singapore, I think. Okay. Yeah. No, Afghanistan. First he went to Afghanistan.
Was he contracted in Afghanistan? Was he still?
Yeah. So he was first. So I can't remember what year the BP oil spill was, but that's when he got this really good contract he would fly over the BP oil spill and spray this like soapy shit out the back of the airplane, and then it would like soak up all the oil or something. I don't know. It's like soap and water and like washing your hands in the ocean. I don't know, something like that. He was saving the planet. That's what he was doing. He's a hero.
You're Grant, of course he is.
Oh yeah.
And he's a Marine, so he's a badass. Let's just leave it there, like, right?
Such a hero, yeah. So he was working at the oil spill, and then after the oil spill was over, they were like, "Do you want to go to Afghanistan and find bombs?" And he was like, "Yeah." So he went to Kandahar, Afghanistan, and he was on this program where they like he was like, it's like super top secret stuff, but I don't think it is anymore. So I'm telling everyone. But they flew like these patterns, and then they would sniff out. They had these like sensors in the plane, and they would find IEDs, which was kind of cool. So he did that. First tour, he was like in Afghanistan for like 9 months, and then he came home for 3 months, and then went back again. And then he was on like 3 or 4 months on, 1 month off, 3 or 4 months on, 1 month off. So he did that for like 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's never really stopped doing that though, if I understand right?
No, he's always gone. Yeah. So the whole time, it's really funny because some of my neighbors for the longest time, they're like, she's divorced. She's a single mom. She's just raising those boys. And then occasionally I would have this boyfriend that would show up. They were like, she's got a boyfriend. Like, no, I mean, okay, cool. Like if that gave me better cool points, I was like, sure, he's my boyfriend. Yeah. That my kid's called Daddy. Yeah.
Okay. It's your baby daddy. We're good.
It's my baby daddy. Yeah. Yeah. So while he was overseas, I had this food business in Bend, basically kind of like a catering business. And then when the recession hit, I actually changed my food business into a beer pub because people are depressed and want to drink. And I was
Why,
like,
yeah, why would you not?
money on beer. And Bend, Oregon, I don't know if you know, is like, I mean, I'm sure you
Hey,
know.
I'm a Boise guy, so I've been to Bend a couple times. So yeah.
So beer. It's a huge beer town and microbrews and everything. So yeah, so I had the bar.
I got to stop you. Save that though, because that's like question 11 out of the 15 we're gonna get to. So yeah.
So
but anyway,
I have my kids and all that stuff. Yeah.
And we're gonna talk about your kids here in a little bit too.
Yeah.
So let's add up all the places you've lived.
Okay.
Tell the folks watching exactly. By the way, Scott McCann just chimed in.
Hi, Scotty McCann.
Yeah, there he is.
Hey!
So
the only one who knew I was married.
That's awesome, man. He was. We'll get to this later, but man, that guy was the reason I play so many sports. So, but we'll talk to that later. Tell the people that are watching right now and everybody listening, tell us all, where exactly have you lived in the last 20 years?
So Taiwan, New York, Virginia, Oregon, Washington, Florida, Mississippi, Oregon, Shenzhen, China, Shanghai. I mean, Hong Kong. We would go.
We'll take it. We'll take it.
But yeah.
All right, we'll
Taiwan, and Oregon, and then Grant was in Afghanistan and Singapore.
Okay, that's amazing, because I say this all the time. I don't know if you've watched all the episodes, but I counted it up, and I've been in 24 houses in the last 20 years. So
yeah.
You may have me beat. I don't know how many times you actually switched addresses in all those places, but yeah, you might have me beat.
Yeah, I've a lot of different addresses. Yeah.
Yeah, but you get it. So that all said, we're gonna move on to question 2.
Okay.
Because trust me, I can't remember who said it. I think it was Dan. Dan said it earlier, but this might be a 2-part episode.
Yeah.
Dan Cooper actually might have said this. So. And he's right. So, but that said, all those places that you lived, this is how I usually start the show, TCK wise.
Yeah.
Where's home?
Taiwan.
Why?
Taiwan was all my formative years. It's where my people are. It's where my closest friends I've ever had, and all my closest friends that I still have are all from Taiwan. Yeah, it just doesn't. I mean, I have some wonderful friends in the States too. Doesn't compare. There's something about they know everything about you. They know all your quirks. They know everything you've been through. They get it. They get why sometimes.
Explain that. They get it, because I don't think a lot of people, maybe some that are watching that aren't TCKs, which does happen. Explain that.
Yeah, so there's it's really hard when you're an American, you look like an American, but you're kind of like, I call myself like a reverse banana. I'm like white on the outside, but I'm yellow on the inside. Like Me too. Yeah, we're but it's very interesting. I would love to say I'm Taiwanese, but being back in Taiwan, like the last 18 months and living there's so many things that as a kid growing up there, you don't absorb, because you're just like a self-centered kid, right? You don't. Yeah,
you're in your teen years, specifically your teen years, right? Yeah, of course.
And I was drunk for 90% of it. So, I didn't appreciate all the things that Taiwan had to offer. And then, so being there as an adult, I realized a lot of the things I missed out on. But the one thing you don't miss out on is the connections you make with those people. Because when you come back to the States as you look American, right? You're a white kid. You come back to the States. And I remember my roommate watching General Hospital, right? On the TV screen. And I was like, what are you watching? And she's like, a soap. I was like, a what? And I'd never experienced it before. And there's something when, like, I could call Kim Funk and be like, have you seen these things called soaps? And she was like, yeah.
By the way, I don't know if you saw it. She's watching. So.
Oh yeah, hi Kimmy. Kim lives like 3 hours away. Yeah. And Kim doesn't drive, so I have to drive to Portland, pick her up, and bring her.
What?
Yeah, Kim, get your license. I'm gonna make sure you get it this year.
It's time. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So it's that it doesn't matter where I am in the world or how long it's been since I've seen you. Like I hadn't seen you in probably 20 years when we hooked up in Shanghai, right?
Yeah,
and it's just like Ben, and it doesn't.
It felt normal, right? It felt normal.
Totally normal. You get our, first of all, of course, all of our jokes and all the things we know.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing when I talk to Grant's friends from Jakarta or some of my friends from Singapore American School. We get that. It's almost an unspoken feeling of we're slightly different. We're just a little bit different. We're a little bit off. That we didn't have homecoming. Like I didn't know what homecoming was. Yeah. I had no idea. We didn't have these. If you come back and you're living in the U.S., there's these things that there are all these stages people have in the U.S. that we didn't have. We had different things. We had the Holly Frolic and we had IASIS. And we were,
we're going to get into IASIS, so don't spoil that. Yeah. We're going to talk about that. Yeah.
But it's just that it's an unspoken feeling when you meet someone that's another TCK and you're like, no way. Like, what sports conference were you in? Or where'd you go for spring break? And you're like, the Maldives. Nice. Or like, we'd go to Club Med in Phuket, you know? And it's, when you're talking to people in the States, even still my adult friends, first of all, Americans don't know jack shit about geography.
No.
Like,
I don't know if you watched this, but like I kept getting, when I first moved back, I kept telling people I was from Taipei and they're like, oh yeah, I've been to California. It's a cool place.
I always used to get, oh, Bangkok, cool. Like I hear there's lots of sex shows there. And I'm like, not Thailand. Not Thailand. Yeah. And then you'd go, okay, like it was the 80s, 90s. I'd be like, made in Taiwan. Yep. Oh, yeah, where is that? Like, I'm like, oh my God. And then, you say it's an island off the coast of China. Yeah. And they're like, oh, I remember I used to get this one. You don't look Chinese.
I got that too.
Really?
Yeah. We'll talk about that later, but I definitely got that too. That's awesome.
So it's that, like I used to hang out when I was at Ithaca College. There was a guy that went to ISB, International School of Bangkok, that was at Cornell University. And he was like, this was just like across the street. And I would like, we ran into each other somewhere and I was like, oh my gosh. And we used to just hang out and we'd have lunch and he'd call me. He'd be like, I just need some international time. And I'd be like, let's go get lunch, and then again, I was at a frat party at Cornell and I hear this guy's voice and it's so crazy. So it was a guy from TAS who like we were in choir together and I was like, oh my God, who I'm not kidding you. I've known him for years. Alex Lin. I was just like totally blanking on his name. Alex Lin, whose sister Brenda is in Taiwan now and teaches.
I know both of them.
Howler, yes, Mike Howler. Will knows Mike Howler. He played basketball at ISB. Okay. So I would like Alex was there and he was at a frat party and he was like, I mean, we were like almost in tears because we were like, oh,
Alex. I'm trying to think. Yeah, you were there. This is back in my middle school days. You were already in high school at the old campus, but Alex was the lion in The Wizard of Oz.
Oh, that's right.
That's right.
Yes, he was. He's a wonderful singer.
You already talked about your height earlier, and you were 4'11" on a good day, right? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I'm shrinking.
I'm still 6'2", so that's good. But I was 5'10" in 6th grade. Awkward as hell. Yeah, it's embarrassing. I don't like to talk about it. But I was.
And your brother was not tall.
No, well, he's tallish. I want to make sure we say that he's tallish.
Jason was
not me.
Tall then.
No, I got my mom's side. He got the Vogel side. So, that said, I was a 5'10" munchkin in The Wizard of Oz.
Oh, no way. Well, that's hilarious.
Yeah. Sorry. At the old campus. It was like the last production at the old campus. So.
Yeah. Very nice.
Anyway, keep going. Sorry.
Yeah. So, it's that it is hard to explain to other people, the non-TCKs, right? It really is. But it changes you. We're not normal. There's nothing normal about us.
We're
different. Yeah,
Yep.
we're wired slightly differently. And I think one of the big things is that we had people coming in and out of our lives. Some people we'd be friends with for 6 months. Some people we were, it might be there a year. And then other people were there like Jason. Other people were there 12 years, right? So you never knew. I never knew when I would make a friend and they would move. So you had this you had this urgency. I don't know if you remember this when it was new student orientation, like the week started. Like we would camp out on campus to check out the new kids. It was like fresh meat. It was like, I remember Tim Eagle. I remember seeing Tim Eagle and being like, that one, he's mine. That one. Like, I mean, it was just, there's a lot of things wrong with me, but I was like, that, I'll take that one. I want the blonde. It was, we would make friends really quickly, and then maybe they would leave, and they'd be gone really quickly, and then we would make new friends again. And I think that's part of the reason we're really good at moving. Like a lot of my friends in the States think it's crazy. Like you just move someplace for like a year and then you move someplace else. I'm like, you just set up house. You just get your,
and it's normal, right? It totally doesn't feel totally normal.
Yeah.
So.
And
I get that.
You make friends. We make friends really quickly. And then if we leave, we're like, we'll make new friends. But our TAS friends, there's something about our group, our age group, during those years at TAS, we are so tight knit.
It hasn't changed, and we're definitely going to talk about that in a little bit. But let's move on. And I'm not. I think Dan Cooper's right, man. We might end up having a two-part show here.
I literally have nothing going on.
No, that's great. But we'll get you back on here probably in a couple of weeks. But let's you're kind of alluding to it right now, but I want to talk about the international school experience. If you can, I mean, you predated me almost 10 years, because my brother and I and my family moved to Hong Kong. We were actually Hong Kong folks in 1983, but you were already in Taiwan. You were set in Taiwan in 1977. I just want to reiterate the fact that I was 2. But that's awesome. No, that's a first. I've never been flipped off on it. But I want to talk about your connection to the international schools, because this is something I didn't know about you. I didn't know you and your sister. I want to make sure we mention your sister too. I didn't know that until you and I talked. Obviously, I talked to every guest prior to coming on here, but I did not know that you spent a year in Singapore. So if you could talk about the memories and just the people and the connection, you've kind of alluded to that a little bit, but if you could talk about that and just the international school experience, that by itself, I want you to talk about, and then we're going to talk about sports in just a little bit. So go ahead and talk about just the international school experience.
So, I was kindergarten at TAS, and it was all Americans, right? It was just, and they were all military kids. And it was, that school was packed. Like it was a big crowded school at the old campus. And I want to say, I'd have to ask my mom, but I want to say there were at least, 25 kids in my kindergarten class. And then I remember I can't remember what day of the week it was, but I remember coming home and my dad saying, things are going to change. Like something big is happening and a lot of your friends are going to be leaving.
Yeah.
Right. And I was
what was your dad doing? What actually got your dad over to Taipei?
So my dad was one of the original employees at Atari.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah. And so he went when he was with Atari in San Jose.
Where? Oh, San Jose. Okay. I was just going to ask, where were you guys before that? So, okay.
Yeah. I was born in San Jose. And so he was at Atari working for Nolan Bushnell, like from day one. He actually worked with Steve Jobs, which is crazy.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. When Steve was at Atari. And so he was at Atari. And then when Atari really started getting big, they realized they could manufacture everything in Taiwan super cheap compared to the States. So my dad was the vice president of manufacturing. So he was like in charge of all the manufacturing of everything. So they sent him to Taiwan, and I think he went in 76. They sent him over to basically set up an office, get a factory set up, get everybody hired, and get shit rolling and start making Pong, you know. So then we came over, my mom and my sister and I, and, you know, I mean, my mom was a small town California girl with two little kids, and she's like, okay, let's go to Taiwan. And it was awesome. It was awesome. And it was this really great community, you know, the beginning. And then everybody left overnight. The military was gone.
What year was that? 79?
79. So where TAS is now, and that would have been where TYPA was for us. So that was the military base. And there was the commissary, there was baseball fields, there was a movie theater, bowling alley. Like, it was all these, like, awesome. That was where we could go. All the Americans could go there. We could do shopping, and like, I remember seeing movies at the movie theater, and I played TYPA T-ball on the military base. Yeah. So it was a different world. And then everybody left.
Overnight, basically.
Overnight.
Right?
Yeah, the military just left. And so there were very few foreigners in Taiwan then. And we were all at TAS, the few of us left. And the only thing we had was ICRT.
Still there.
Yeah.
I just became Facebook friends with Tony Taylor. I don't know if you remember him, but
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
So International Community Radio Taiwan was like our lifeline. I remember my parents always had it on.
Me too.
At dinner, you know, they turned on so we could, you know, they would say, hey, Americans, we just heard peanut butter, like Jif peanut butter just came in on a flight. And if you want Jif peanut butter, you know, meet everybody at the corner of Zhongshan Beilu and, you know, wherever, and section 6, and we'll have peanut butter. Like, it was crazy for a while. And Taiwan, if you remember, was also under martial law.
Oh, totally.
So,
that's how it was when we first moved there. We moved there in 86.
Yeah. So martial law was 88. I think 88 martial law ended. So it was a crazy time. And that was when it was like everybody got really close, because the few people that were left, like, all hung out together, and it was really fun. And then basically manufacturing started picking up in Taiwan. Really, you know, everything made in Taiwan. So Atari was there, and then all these other companies were coming in, and then banks were coming in, and all of a sudden all these Americans started coming back, and TAS started kind of filling up again. And so that was, you know, like 80, 81, 82. It started to become a little more normal again. And it was, I mean, so it's very interesting. They, I probably shouldn't say this, but so the superintendent.
Say it.
Yeah. So this was the 70th anniversary year of TAS. So they were going to have this huge, you know, 70th anniversary thing in Taiwan this year. And they were, I guess they were like naming the decades, like this, you know, like the 60s were the, you know, whatever, I don't know what they called it. The 70s, they called TAS the military years at TAS. They couldn't come up with a name for the 80s at TAS, so they called it the lost years. And I was like, I'm sorry, what?
That's us.
Years? That's
us. Yeah.
It was the most amazing time in Taiwan.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they said there was no, like, it was chaos. It was just chaos. Like, there was no, you know, rules, or everything was up in the air. It was just the lost years at TAS. And I was like, what?
No, not to us.
Came up with, not to us.
Not to us.
The 80s were the most amazing decade in Taiwan. Because
Absolutely.
Taiwan was kind of finding itself. You know, they were like, okay, we are, you know, we're suddenly on our, Randy, the lost years. Yeah. Not kidding.
I never heard that either. Yeah, I never heard that either. Wow.
Yeah. Dr. Hennessy said that we were the lost years. Sharon Hennessy, the superintendent. So I was kind of, that pissed me off, because
as it should. It pisses me off, and I was in middle school.
Right? And that was this time of like growth. Randy. So it was this, I mean, it was Taiwan was finding its identity, I think, through that. And it was really interesting. Like if you go back and look at like the politics of the era in Taiwan and like everything that was going on, I mean, people just wrote Taiwan off. They like the military left and they were like, good luck, peace out.
Yeah.
And Taiwan kicked ass. And they are still obviously now like seriously kicking ass. And I'm so honored, honestly, to be like an alumni from I mean, we were class of 90, but 89, 90, you know, like to be there during that time, I think is a huge honor. I think we were there during the best time, really.
That's crazy for me to hear. And yet I sit back and think, because you were in high school, I was at the old campus.
Yeah.
Until we moved to the new campus. But I sit here and think like I've said this a couple times on the show, but like, you know, NBA guys, all the Michael Jordans of the world, the Charles Barkleys of the world, meant nothing to me.
Yeah.
My idols as a kid growing up in that period that you're talking about, the lost years.
Yeah.
Tim Eagle, Tim Birmingham, all those guys that I used to go, like my Friday nights, I was at a TAS basketball game.
That's right.
And I was going, I want to be like that guy. Andy
Moriarty,
Liam Moriarty, right?
Yep. There was more school spirit and more like teamwork and connection between people back then, I think, than ever.
Wow, I mean, lost years?
Yeah.
Because those are the prime years. I'm sorry.
Prime years.
I'm a proud Tiger. Like that's wow. I didn't know that. So that's interesting to hear.
Ever, came up with a different name, but that was the lost years, the 80s.
Yeah, because I remember. I mean, Daryl Franz. I mean, what an honor to play for that man. And then even at the old school, because they left for a couple of years and then they came back, and I can't remember the gentleman's name that took over, but my family went and watched the basketball games. We were there every softball game. We were there. That was our Saturday afternoon. I mean that.
Yeah.
To hear that.
It was our whole life.
Yeah.
TAS was our whole life, and it still is such a huge part of the community. I mean, you know, being there just the last 18 months, you know, I have my alumni card, and I just, you know, we just lived right up the street from school. So, I mean, my husband thought, like, he makes fun of me. He was like,
"Uh-oh, you there?"
Like, you're so weird. And I would just, like, I'd be doing my grocery shopping in Tiamu, and then I'd go over to school and with my card, and I'd go into school, and then I'd go get like a biscuit or a cookie and coffee in the cafeteria. And then I'd meet like, you know, my friend Jen, who was in the alumni office, or like Maria Peters or something like that.
Yeah, Maria.
Yeah, you know, and you just like, I just sit at school and have my coffee, and then I'd get my groceries and go home. It's still the center of the, you know, foreign community in Taiwan. It still is, because it's amazing. It has changed. I mean, it definitely has changed. It's not like it used to be, but it still is it's a huge part of our lives and our community.
And it always will be, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's who I mean, I view myself. I'm still a Tiger at heart, but I totally understand what you're saying. So
but Singapore was different when we went.
Let's talk about. I had no idea that you spent a year in Singapore. I don't know if many people do. So tell us about that.
Atari was, I think they sold out to Time Warner at the time, and my dad did not want to go with them, and he took a job in Singapore, and so we thought Singapore.
Sorry,
was amazing.
That's all right. My dog has decided to make an appearance. So
I love
Kayla. Go ahead. My wife's at a friend's house, and I got stuck babysitting with the dog. So
that's all right. I've been cleaning up puppy shit all day. So
we'll talk about your dogs in just a little bit, because you've got badass dogs. So
yeah. So we went to Singapore, and I figured it would be just like TAS, right? Well, Singapore is very different, because Singapore is all Americans. TAS is more, we have French people, German people, you know, Taiwanese American. We've got Indian people. Like, it's very eclectic. We have a total international community. SAS to me felt like almost like all Americans. I mean, there were some international people too, but mostly Americans. And they were from Texas or Oklahoma. A lot of them were oil companies. And I was like, holy shit. Like, I don't know what these people are talking about. It was a totally different vibe. It was like my mom was like, oh my God. I mean, thankfully, she had some friends from Taiwan that had moved to Singapore. So she had some kind of instant friends. But it was weird. SAS was different for me. I did, had friends and stuff, but it was very different, a different feel than Taiwan. And my parents were the same way. And my dad immediately was like, okay, we're going back. Like, we're not,
And
Singapore's not for us.
He left Atari, right?
Yeah. He left Atari and he had his own company. So he had his own manufacturing company in Taiwan from like 1984 or 83, something like that, whenever sixth grade was, through like till he died. Yeah. So he had his own company in Taiwan. And basically he did manufacturing. So he leased all these factories in Taiwan and he made, hi, Iris. He made all of these, he made parts, he made things for like computer parts, or he made toys. He made all kinds of stuff for US companies. He would manufacture them. And then, he was like the middleman kind of thing. So he did that for years.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Let's talk. Okay. So we talked about memories. We talked about people. Obviously people that are watching right now are chiming in, and that's fantastic. Keep it coming. But let's talk about the sports side, because this is something that I've struggled to maybe explain in detail, but I want you to talk about IASIS. I want you, because you were a badass. I mean, I don't even know. I mean, my guess is your records still hold. I don't know.
What? I still have one.
There you go. Cling on to it. It's all good. So, but I want you to, I know what it is, and most people watching know what it is, but those that are watching that have no idea what you and I are talking about, we're talking about IASIS. International
Association of
Southeast Asian Schools, right? Yep. Yeah. So that was our state tournament, if you will, right? So I want you to explain those memories and those trips and everything sports related. How privileged were we? I mean, looking back now, like, good God, privileged. Right? Yeah. So I want you to talk about that. So, because I've said it to so many people and they're like, cool, dude, but I want you to talk about it.
They don't get it.
They don't get it. They don't get it.
So we, like, at first, before we were in IASIS, we just had like Morrison, and we had our Hong Kong tournaments at Christmas, and like our
explain who Morrison is real quick.
Okay, so Morrison Christian Academy was our cross island rival. So they're about a 2.5 hour drive away, and it's a Christian school, a lot of missionaries.
Morrison Christian Academy, yeah.
Morrison Christian Academy, and they had a boarding as well as like day students, and it's really interesting because the Dan Long, who is the head of school at TAS right now, he was super hot in high school, and he went to Morrison Christian Academy, and he played basketball against us. So I would always, when I'd be at TAS, I'd go say hi to Dan Long. Yeah, so it was always fun. But so they were our big thing. We had Morrison, competitions. We'd have them probably like maybe twice a month, around there. Yeah. They would come up, or we would go down, and those were our basketball games. Like, basketball was crazy, and the parents came. And
basketball games are huge. Yeah, even the JV games are huge. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and the thing I think people don't get too about the States versus Taiwan is, okay, you have like some middle school sports, or like TYPA, which is like our Parks and Rec. But we didn't have all these like in the States they have club sports, and it's super competitive, and then you make the varsity team in high school or whatever. And most kids as freshmen in the States, they're not making the varsity team, right?
Hell no. As a coach, Taiwan, I can tell you that right now. Hell no.
Right? Yeah. So at TAS, my dad told me this like on a daily basis. Debbie, you're a big fish in a really little pond. And I'd be like, shit. It was like this reality check constantly. Like, okay, Dad, I know you're right. But we, as freshmen, could be on the varsity team. Like I ran varsity track as a 7th grader.
Yeah. Wow. Wow.
I mean, if you were athletic, they'd put you on the team. So we had
especially in those days, right?
Yeah. Especially. So we had this opportunity to play sports like in these awesome environments where the whole community would come out to support like every night. Like I was a cheerleader, right? So our basketball games were insane. A Tuesday night game.
Mm-hmm.
Were packed with all the parents because the parents would come home from work and they
I was there.
For the games.
That's what I was talking about. Like as a middle school kid looking at those high school kids, I'm like, those are my role models. Those are the guys I want to be. And the tradition continued because I got told that the same thing by middle school guys that when I was playing. Right. So it's hopefully it's continuing. I don't know, but I hope so. Yeah.
Well, it still does. I mean, okay, so just this last year I was in a bar in Tiamu.
What? You were in a bar?
What is new?
What?
And with some alumni. And these we sit down at a table and there's some TAS students sitting next to us at the bar at the table because TAS students go into a bar, of course. And granted, they were like, I think one was 18. The drinking age in Taiwan is they actually have a drinking age sort of now. It's 18, but
right?
They'll serve anybody. So we sit down and the kid says to me, oh, Mrs. Krieger? Are you Mrs. Krieger? And I'm like, I'm not Mrs. Krieger. Well, okay, yes. And he's like, oh my gosh, I see your record every day. And you're on the Hall of Fame. It's such a pleasure to meet you. And I'm like, are you kidding me?
Wow.
Like, really?
That's awesome.
What? And so it's crazy. It's like they still, I mean, they have an awesome Hall of Fame.
I've seen it. That was back a couple of years ago, but yeah. It's
pretty cool. And it's, I mean, it's an honor. It's a huge honor. Like I didn't know, I just loved sports, right? I just love sports.
Tell everybody what you did. Those that are maybe not knowing you so well.
Soccer. I loved soccer. And then I was a cheerleader in the winter because I'm insanely uncoordinated with anything like basketball. So bad. I cannot swim. I mean, I can swim, but very poorly. I'm a terrible swimmer. You know why? Do you remember Mr. Lee? The PE teacher, Booty Lee.
Yeah.
Third grade. He takes me up on the high dive. Like I was not a good swimmer. And he was like, you can swim. And I was like, I cannot swim, man. I'm like not a good swimmer. I'm in third grade and I'm like crying. He held me off the high dive and dropped me.
What?
Swear to God.
Wow.
Yeah.
I know the high dive you're talking about too at the old school.
Yeah, the old school. The really high
wow.
One.
Wow.
I don't know.
It
was the big one.
Yeah, but it was still big. No. It was good. It was a good size. It was legit.
Big. Iris would know. Is it a 3 meter or something? I don't know.
It was big. It was high. Yeah.
So he dropped me off the board, and then basically after that, I was like, I don't like swimming. So I do swim. Like I know how to swim, and like can scuba dive and things like that. But I am not good in the water, and I fucking blame it on Mr. Lee. I blame it on you, Booty.
That's awesome. I don't know where. I don't know where he is.
He's in Taiwan.
Is he still there? Yeah. That doesn't shock me at all. He actually did the aquatics. You know this. My mom ran Child's World, the international preschools, and he was actually the head guy there. So I actually worked for him for a couple of years. When I would go back from college, I'd go back to Taipei, and I would teach swimming lessons to like 4 and 5-year-olds. Yeah, I don't know how I did it, but
that's how he taught me how to swim.
Drop you in.
Drop me in. I still like if I see a picture of that diving board, I almost come to tears.
That is so funny.
He was a gymnast. I think he was on the Taiwan national.
No, he was a bigwig. I remember that. Like he was a major big dude like in Taipei. So like
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. So
anyway,
I mean
I did cheerleading in the winter because
I remember
I couldn't play tennis. It was terrible. I couldn't dribble a basketball. I was like, I can wear a short skirt and shake my ass.
And you did it well. You did it well. I remember being a freshman in high school. There you go. So I
had a stalker at HKIS as a cheerleader. What? I did. I had a stalker. Yeah, this kid at HKIS. I can't remember his name. I swear I'm sure I have it written down somewhere. I had this weird kid at HKIS that when we would go to the tournament every winter.
Tell people about that because I was I did that twice.
That was amazing. So every year, December 26th through December 31st.
Yeah.
There was this huge basketball tournament, the Hong Kong Christmas basketball tournament at Hong Kong International School. and it was a party. Like, it was so fun. So it was TAS, Hong Kong International School,
Morrison
Christian Academy, the American School in Japan, St.
Mary's
St. Mary's Academy.
Yep.
Sometimes International School of Bangkok.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes there was like another one.
Yeah.
Maybe from the Philippines or something. I don't know. There was maybe some.
There was always an extra one. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, it was a huge tournament. And that's where I met my first sailor. I don't know if you remember.
Of course you did.
Also, over Christmas time, it was Fleet Week. And the fleets would come into Hong Kong. So like the British military and sometimes the U.S. military would park in Hong Kong and just party it up. Now, I didn't have to play basketball. I just had to shake my ass.
Did. Yeah.
You did, right? Like, I just had to like rah, go Tigers. I could do that hungover. That was not a problem. So we would go down. I was like 15. And
Sorry.
going to the bars with these like British sailors. Oh my God. How we did not get like molested. I swear to God. I don't know. I remember Jenny Uribe and I like downtown.
Oh, I remember Jenny Uribe.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And we were bad. But anyway, the Hong Kong tournament was amazing. So cheerleading was a lot of fun. And I was kind of like, my sister was a cheerleading captain for years. And then when she graduated, then I was the captain. And I was like, they gave me 1 year a whip because I was hardcore. I was like, you do it right, or like you sit your ass down. Like, you don't fuck up.
Well, you were on top, right? You were on top of the old pyramids. You were.
Yeah, I was like, don't you drop me. Yeah. So I was a little mean. I was a little intense during training season. Just a little. I was drunk most of the time. Just a little.
Hey, it happens.
So then track season was when I got my shit together. Yeah. So then I behaved.
So in the spring, right? Because track was spring.
Yeah. Spring season. So that was my sport, was track. All the other stuff was just like,
okay,
whatever.
Now you got to keep going. Brag about yourself. Right. Tell us about track.
So track was, I don't know. I think, well, I have kind of a Napoleon complex, which I always have. A lot of short people do. I was like, if I am not as tall as you, I'm going to beat you in some other way. I'm faster than you. Like, I'm going to be faster than you. And so I was
you were.
I had a lot of speed. I was lucky. My legs move really fast. And like taller people, I remember, so IASIS freshman year, I remember lining up for the heats of the 100 meter and all these just tall American girls, right? These big girls. And I was like, oh, shit. And then, as my dad always said, he's like, fuck them. Like, we don't care about you. You worry about yourself. And I broke the IASIS record in my first race in IASIS as a freshman. And in that first heat, because I was just like, I always felt like someone was chasing me. It was probably a drunk British sailor. I'm not sure. But I was like, run faster. And I was always trying to prove myself too. Because when you're small, you always feel like you kind of have to prove yourself. So I broke the IASIS record my freshman year, first race at IASIS. And then in the 100, and then I broke the 200 record in my 200 meter heat in the next race. And then we broke the 4x100 meter record, our 4x100 team. And then my sister broke the long jump and triple jump records. Yeah.
I didn't know that. Let's give props to your sister. Tell everybody your sister's name.
My sister's Becky.
And what's she doing now? Because she's a doctor, right?
She's a doctor of dietetics and nutrition at Rutgers University. And she was just voted the dietitian of the year for education for the entire United States of America.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. For the whole country. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So all this online stuff. So my sister lives in Portland, but she's been teaching online. Yeah. She's been teaching on Zoom online doctoral and master's students for like 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah. She was saying the other day, she's like, I have known Zoom is amazing for years, and I should have bought stock in Zoom years ago. I'm like, you're such an idiot. God, you call yourself teacher of the year? So dumb. No, she's
That's
not.
awesome. No,
She's
that's
really smart.
I knew her for like a half a second because she was what, class of 88?
88, yeah.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
she's definitely
So
wow.
she's super smart. Yeah.
Okay.
And I mean, she wasn't like in high school or really college. But
Who
then
was, right? I'm sorry, but who
then
was
she
a
was
TAS?
like, yeah. I would not make it through freshman year of TAS right now.
No.
There's no way.
No.
It's gotten a lot harder. Yeah, so my sister's a badass in nutrition and education.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, listen, let's we're an hour in and I'm on question 3 out of 13. So but this is awesome. No, it's awesome. And I have no intention of going anywhere, so don't worry about it.
Okay.
Let's you talked about your experience in international schools, but let's kind of talk about the positives and negatives, because that's a lot of people that are watching. I mean, obviously half the people that are watching totally get it. They live the life you and I did. They have been there. They totally get it. But there's a lot that don't. And there's a lot of people watching that maybe have kids that are going through the same exact thing, whether they're current TCKs, third culture kids, just so those that are watching understand that concept. But there's a lot that, that are currently doing the same thing you and I were, but there's a lot that maybe future-wise are going to be doing the same. So talk about the positives and the negatives of being a TCK, third culture kid.
So the positives are definitely, first of all, just the education. There's something about being, first of all, immersed in so many different cultures. So, I mean, I had like German friends, French friends, Swiss friends, Indian friends, American friends. Like, you're just so much more worldly, right? I mean, it's just so amazing to have that world experience. And then also, of course, the travel. Like for sports, we would go to, Manila for a soccer game.
Thank you.
We would go to
Talk about
Bangkok.
that. Talk about that. Yeah, because even though we brushed up on sports, but I want you to truly, I get it. I've said it, but I don't know if people truly get it that even know me.
Okay,
so explain that.
Think about this. You, like a high school in the States, you're going to a track meet, right? So you're 30 kids, jump on a school bus. They drive an hour and a half across town or whatever to another school, and they go to a track meet. These kids that you see in the mall all the time or whatever, and then you drive home and you have dinner and you do your homework and you do it again 2 days later. You go to another school 30 minutes away and you have a track meet, right? And then maybe you go to regionals and states where you drive 3 hours away and you go to a track meet and whatever. So for us, it was, okay, everybody, okay, get your passports together. I remember this so many times. We would get to the airport and there would be one dumbass that would have lost their passport. Right? They were like,
there's always one.
Not going. There's always one. One. So we would, first of all, we dress up, right? You had to look nice.
I had to put the tie on.
Yep. I had to actually wear like a skirt, which I owned like one. And it was my IASA skirt. It was the only thing I owned that was pretty. And you get on the airplane, and you can imagine like 30 American high school kids getting on an airliner and flying 4 hours to Bangkok, right? So Mojo Husama got detained. That's right. That was crazy. Like, there's crazy stuff. So we had one guy. So we get on the airplane, and we're all these, teenagers, and we would just, oh my God, it was chaos. Like, we were just, I don't know how our coaches ever like managed us. So I remember it was a soccer trip. I can't remember where we were going, but it was the guy who was in charge of food services. It was his son. And I can't remember his name, but he was on the soccer team. And I can't think of it. Mike something. I don't know. Anyway, so we were not supposed to drink on the flight.
What?
Right? Well, the flight attendants are like offering wine or beer or orange juice, and we're all drinking orange juice. And this one dumbass starts drinking a beer on the flight, and it was, I think it was Mr. Franz. I did not do it. No.
Oh, Franz did.
I think it was Franz that was like, what? And we landed in Phuket. Yes,
Phuket. Yes.
That's
yes.
it, Randy.
Thanks, Randy.
So we landed in wherever we were going. I want to say Bangkok, someplace, and they literally put this kid on an airplane back to Taiwan. They were like, dude, you're out. Like, you're going home. So like sometimes the IASAs, like, they were strict.
Well, they didn't play games. They didn't
They
play
didn't
games.
play games at IASIS, but it all depended on. So when we would fly to another country, we got housed. So you would go to the school. So we'd walk into Singapore American School, and there'd be all these families sitting there, and they would call your name. They'd be like, Debby Krieger, Jenny Uribe. We were like, we'd walk forward with our suitcases, and then these family would come forward, and they'd be like, you're with us. And so what I always tried to do was find my friends at these other schools, and I would house with them, because then we could sneak out, or I knew their parents.
What?
So we tried to house with friends. So it was who you were housing with was always a big deal. But we would go live, stay for a week with strangers, or 4 days with strangers. And we always brought a gift, right? You'd bring a housing gift, something from Taiwan we would give to the family. And sometimes they would give us something, which was cool. But you got to meet all these different people from all these different countries, because you would just go live with a random family for a week, and they would feed you breakfast, and then they would put you on the school bus or in their car with their driver, and they would take you to school. And then we would compete all day. And then we would get back in their car or on the bus, and then go back to their house and shower and eat dinner with their family. I mean, I met so many cool people through housing at IASIS.
Well, explain the actual countries that were involved with IASIS.
Okay, so IASIS is Taiwan, Singapore, Bangkok or Thailand, Manila, Kuala Lumpur, and Jakarta. So that's the 6.
And Taipei, obviously.
And Taipei, yeah. So that's the IASIS thing. And I literally met my husband at IASIS track my freshman year of high school in Singapore when I was 14 years old.
That's awesome. We're going to talk about that. Well, hopefully we're going to talk about that in this episode. We might have to do two.
Yeah.
We might have to do two.
Like, so many of my friends still are from IASIS. One of my really good friends, Christina, she was from Bangkok, and we played soccer together. And, my friend from Cornell that went to ISB, my friends from Singapore. Yeah.
I get it. Because obviously I did the exact same thing you did a couple of years later, but one of the guys that I got to know pretty well was an ISB guy too, and Monty Major. He and I, obviously, I want to get him on the show, and he doesn't probably even know about the show yet, but I want to try to get him on. I get it, because they obviously they're living the exact same thing you're living in another country. Yeah. And I asked this, sports aside, look, you and I are both athletes. You and I did that whole thing. I get it. We both played college sports, all that. But it was those connections we made with those IASIS kids. It wasn't even the TAS folks. It was like, this guy gets me, and he lives in Bangkok. This guy gets me, he lives in the ISKL or Kuala Lumpur.
Yeah.
So totally. I mean, look at who you ended up marrying, right?
Yeah. A TCK.
Totally. So totally TCK.
And that's when so that was a huge positive. But then when you're in the States in college, and you say, oh yeah, we go to Bangkok for like a basketball game, and people would be like, what the fuck? And you're like, well, yeah, it was like our sports conference. Yeah. And they go, it was a state tournament. That's the only way I can actually explain it. It was the state tournament. And they go like, must be nice. Yeah. Oh, we were spoiled. Yeah, you're so spoiled. You got to go, I'm gonna be like, no, it's like a really cheap flight. It's like
that's just what it was. It's just what it was. We went to. You played basketball, TS. You were a cheerleader. You were a basketball player. Yeah. You knew you were going to Hong Kong. My senior year, we actually didn't go to Hong Kong. We went to Okinawa. We went to a military base. The Okinawa tournament. Yeah, but it was badass. It was badass. We played all the military bases, and we. Yeah. Okay, hold on.
You got your butts kicked?
No, we kicked their ass. We actually, we won on a buzzer beater my senior year against one of the schools, but then we actually won. We did well. So awesome. It was one of those things like, we're not going to Hong Kong? What? And as a guy who lived in Hong Kong for a couple of years, that killed me. Yeah. Yeah. But I just accepted it. We got to Okinawa, and we played all the military bases there, and it was just like, wow, this is just another example, right? So no, it was cool. And we took the cheerleading crew. We took the mascot. Tim was our mascot. Tim Wenger was our mascot. So I mean, it was just a situation where, how do you explain that, right? And without sounding pompous,
like an asshole. Yeah, you just sound like an asshole.
Right. And that's the thing, is it that's not how I viewed it. That's just what it was.
Yes. So
And that's
that's
the
a
whole
it's a big negative of being a TCK when you have to adapt to your new life in America or Europe or whatever, you have to temper what you say.
Yeah.
Because it does come off as sounding extremely pompous. Like okay, so I was telling a friend of mine that at TAS right now, like the students in this in the iGEM, like the research science class, like they're studying COVID-19 virus at TAS.
Wow.
Like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, these are high school students. And I was telling somebody, a friend of mine, just recently about that, and they were like, what kind of school did you go to? And I'm like, well, I mean, it's a private international school. I'm like, it's a really good school.
Yeah.
And it just comes off as bragging.
Yeah.
And
you're not trying to.
I'm not trying to. I'm just like, this is amazing. Like, this is what they do.
Yeah.
It's incredible. And it's just, we were so lucky.
Yeah. And exactly. You just said it. We're so lucky because I've said this a couple hundred times now, maybe on this podcast or video cast, but we all have a story. This just happens to be ours. It's not better. It's not worse. We're not gloating. We're not in it. It's just what it was.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
So lucky.
So looking back now, 20 plus years later, we're like, I am beyond thankful. Right. I mean, it's who I am. It's what I'm about. But I never thought of myself as better or worse. I just thought like this is what it is.
I mean, come on. We are better. I mean, we maybe think it. No, I'm just kidding. I'm totally kidding.
No, the fact that we can fly, that's pretty badass. Come on. Like, I've tried to tell, like, I've coached for a couple of years now in the States, and I told my players, like, this was our state tournament. And they look at me like, I'm sorry, what?
I know.
Like you flew? First of all, you flew. Not to another state, mind you, to another country. And it was normal, right? It was normal. Like it's like, no big deal. I even told like pre-ISS tournaments. We went to Manila. My senior year, I think I went to Manila 3 times for volleyball, basketball, and softball, baseball, whatever, softball. And it was normal. Like I never even thought about it. Like it was just what you did.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, so
I mean, we would go to Hong Kong and go shopping for the weekend.
Yeah, that tournament though. The cool thing about we're so. By the way, let me look at my clock here. We are an hour and 17 in, and I'm not planning on stopping. I don't care.
Okay, Grant's got puppy control right now. I don't hear any puppy
Grant can hop onto this as well because I do want to talk to him a little bit later, maybe about TAS. But my point though was like, trying to explain the difference between state tournaments stateside and going to my senior year, Singapore, but for my last ISS and we won. It's the equivalent of winning a state tournament, but
absolutely.
Yeah, you hop on a plane and it was no big deal. Yeah. You know? And yet it was. And yet it was. You're right.
Absolutely. So and anytime you could beat SAS, like major kudos, right? If SAS didn't win, it was like such big bragging rights. There was nothing better than beating SAS. And still to this day, there is nothing better than beating SAS.
Can I tell you, I don't even know if you know this because you were a couple years removed, but my senior year, TAS had never won the softball because we weren't allowed to play baseball. But we went there and that was the first time TAS had ever won softball, and we beat them on Singapore's campus. Smashed it right in their face. And you and I both right now, right? Like it's 20 plus years later. Who cares, right? Who really cares?
No, but it's
still something that I love. I love the fact that we did that on their home field.
And the thing is, it's because SAS, those were the American kids, like the real American kids. And if you could beat the American kids, it was like, whoa, we got a pretty good team. If we're beating these are real kids that just came, a lot of them from high schools in the States came over to Singapore just for high school or whatever. And when you kicked their ass, it was like,
it rubbed it. Just awesome. We ended up. This is so stupid that I even know this, but we beat SAS 6-0 to advance to the championship game on their home field with their entire student body there. We shut them out, and it was like, to this day, I'm 44 years old, and I'm sitting here thinking like, that's still such an honor.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's SA, and I was friends with some of those SAS guys. You get to know them over the years, right? So
yeah,
I just was like, you know what? Here we go. And then we'll talk after. But it was such a beautiful thing. And we ended up beating ISKL in the championship game and winning softball for the first time ever in TS's history. But the ISKL game, don't get me wrong, it was great and whatever, we won, but it was the SAS. I mean, there were rivalries. There were true rivalries that people maybe don't get. Yeah, and it's the same.
100%. And it's still that way.
Yeah.
Anytime that
I hope so. I hope so, right?
And then all the other schools root against SAS. Yeah. And I'm sorry, I have a lot of friends, SAS friends. Sorry gues, but
you went there.
Kind of hate you.
I didn't know that, but you went there.
Yeah,
it's reciprocated though. Come on, it's reciprocated.
Yeah. It is. Yeah. It is. Yeah, but that was a huge positive and these memories in our lives. And there's a lot of negatives again from being overseas because when you do go to college, you're totally a fish out of water, and you have to learn how to adapt. And sometimes I think some of us do better than others at adapting to U.S. life. Some of us spent time, like we would go to summer camp, like in the summer. Yeah. My mom would send me to camps in the States.
I went to sports camps. It was cool. Yeah.
So that way I could like kind of learn how to like
be American
kids. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. And I had cousins that would try and like teach me how to be an American, like sort of in the summer and stuff. And it was, I mean, that's a negative because you do come back and you feel like, you feel a little weird. It's hard. And then we are drawn to other TCKs, right? We're just like, cause it's comfort. They know us.
You don't have to explain yourself to them. Nope. And that's the beauty of it. I want to keep going because you're starting to touch on some topics that are like questions number 13, 14. So I want to get to that.
Okay.
What do you, brutally honest, no strings attached here, what do you miss the most about not only TAS and that period of your life, but what about just the TCK's days period? Like what do you miss the most?
I probably miss I think the independence and freedom that we had. We were TAS abroad, Miss Ratsburg. We had so much independence. If you think about, like, I remember being in, I don't know, 4th or 5th grade and just getting in a taxi. I
was in 6th grade. I totally agree.
Yeah. And just like going to the American Club. And again, like there wasn't really a drinking age. So we would go to clubs and bars in like 7th, 8th grade. And do you remember
that bar that was next to the I mean, you would have been a senior, but remember what McDonald's was on I guess it's in Timu, obviously.
Yeah.
There was a bar right next door. 8th grade.
I don't even remember that bar.
I can't remember. Tim will somebody bug me about this, but
Randy will remember it. Do you remember the jungle? You remember the jungle?
Yeah. And there you go with Randy. MTVs. Yeah, totally.
MTVs. Yeah, we had this. I miss that freedom. Our parents.
Randy again. The ACC. Yeah, of course.
I mean, we would go to the ACC.
Tell everybody what the ACC was, because
the American Club in China, which is still there, and it just looks fancier now, but it's still there. But we would go in, and we would first we would eat on our parents' account. And then like we got to know the bartender at the bar. And so we would go in and he would make us drinks in like paper cups so we could drink. And he would write it up as like ice cream. Like he would write the tab. He would fake it like so it didn't look like we were all drinking there. And we had this I raised kids. I raised boys in the States. And I would never have let them just like TNC, is that the name of the bar?
It was an MTV, right? Or maybe a bar. I know what you're talking about, Dan.
TNC? That sounds
hold
right.
On. Randy got yes. There you go.
The bartender, yes, Randy. Yes. So we had this freedom. And we didn't, I mean, Yeah, we go to the beer gardens. We go to Mariners Pub down.
Oh, Mariners. Mariners.
And
Come
there
on
was
now.
like, I remember sitting at, I mean, this is terrible, but sitting at a bar with a hooker at Mariners, like having shots, doing shots with this woman. And then I think it was my sister who was like, she's a hooker. And I was like, what? Oh, she's really nice. And just like, yeah. And just doing, we would go to the pool room. We would go and sneak into the sauna. Like we'd be drinking. And then at the American Club, we'd go into the sauna. And then we'd go play racquetball. And we'd be like Town and Country Pub. Yes, Miss Kimberly Funk. Antonio's, MTV.
Antonio's, yeah. I was there.
Yeah. So we had, I think that that independence and freedom was, it's what I miss, because you can't do that in the States. You can't just have a pack of teenagers jumping in taxis and like we would do, like, I mean, we were crazy, some of the stuff we would do. Okay, here's another thing. Like my parents had this big Halloween party at their house every year. Not every year, but a lot of years. And they would do a scavenger hunt. These were all of the international parents, right? So they'd come to my house and all these parents are dressed up in these crazy Halloween costumes. And then they would get totally hammered. And then they had their drivers. And they would go in teams of 4 in each car with the driver driving. And they would have these scavenger hunt questions. And they would do a scavenger hunt all around Taipei. So these American adults dressed up in crazy costumes, drunk off their ass, following clues around Taiwan, right? And like, okay, so here's a really, Randy will appreciate this. So one year at the Halloween party, I hadn't left yet. Like my parents would send my sister and I out. And I think I was middle school and I smell smoke, right? I'm in my bedroom and the party's starting and I'm about to leave and I smell smoke. And I'm like, and my sister's like, do you smell smoke? I'm like, I smell smoke. And I look out my window and Mr. Busaba, Joe Busaba's
Sammy
dad,
Busaba's dad. Yeah.
So,
Joe Busaba, Sue Busaba.
So Mr. and Mrs. Busaba were dressed as the Ku Klux Klan. And they're Lebanese, mind you, let me preface this, and we're Jewish, right? Which is hilarious. They had built a cross and they were burning a cross. They burnt a cross in our yard.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the shit we could do in the 80s in Taiwan.
And nobody cared.
No one cared. It was the funniest freaking thing I have ever seen. And no one cared. And that is what Taiwan, that's what I miss the most, is it was this, you didn't have to be politically correct. You didn't have to, right? And all the businessmen would do, like, they'd all kind of, hey, you need, a computer provider or something. Yeah, ask Rick. He'll get it for you. Or you need this. Mm-hmm. They all helped each other. And it was this really awesome freedom and independence and I'd say creativity. And really it was like, who gives a shit? Yeah. Who gives a shit? And somewhere I'll have to find it at my mom's house. We have a picture of a burning cross and the Busabas dressed as Ku Klux Klan.
Oh my God.
And somebody else's dad, and I can't remember, somebody was dressed as Kermit the Frog, and he had a giant dildo hanging out of his little costume. And I think I was in 7th grade, and I remember being like, what the fuck? Like, oh my God. And my sister and I being like, we're getting out of here. I mean, it was craziness. But that was the best part of Taiwan. I remember, though, they had the pig roast every year in Taiwan, which was another huge party that all the adults did.
Yep.
And I remember after my mom got all these pictures developed from the pig roast party, she was so hungover the next day, I remember. And then somehow I was looking through the pictures, and there's a picture of her and Mr. McPherson, our vice principal, in the bathtub together.
What?
Like, yes. I mean, they had most of their clothes on, but they're like totally hammered and like
most of their clothes
bathtub. And I'm like, oh my God. Like, they were crazy. They were insane. Do you remember when did you ever go to Club Med?
Of course. Well, yeah.
So one year at Club Med, I remember when the moms went topless. It was like topless at the beach, and I remember being like,
we weren't there. I wasn't there that year. I would remember that.
Kim was there. You would remember Kim. I think that was Pet. And some of the moms were topless, and we were just appalled. And my dad was wearing a weenie binder, like a little banana hammock.
Of course he was.
So embarrassed. It was so embarrassing. But they just didn't give a shit. They were having fun. They loved life.
And yet,
I mean, granted, they were all making good money. They were having a good time. And the 80s were fabulous.
And yet you get it now.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
Like it totally makes sense.
I get it now. I totally get it. And we had that freedom. And I miss that because I think kids in the States, I mean, granted, it's a much more dangerous world. Taiwan is so safe. Taiwan is insanely safe. Kids in the States don't have that freedom. No. And I mean, it's just not possible to have that kind of freedom anymore. No. They still do have some of that in Taiwan, I have to say, because it is still insanely safe. And there is still some of that, but not like it was, where we basically did whatever we wanted.
Yeah, hell yeah. Even before Corona, right? I mean, that's just what I remember. So.
Yeah.
Wow. I could talk to you about just that for an hour and a half. And I want to. So I hate to break it to you. You're the first guest I've ever said this to. You're coming back.
Okay, I'll come back.
Okay, you're coming back. Let's move on a little bit because I could talk to you about that forever. So your boy toy, your husband, Grant.
Yes.
You're married to a TCK. A couple questions on that. So I want you to explain to the people. I know you briefly touched on this earlier. How did you two meet? Because I know it has to do with IASs. But I also want you to explain, is it the fact that he grew up at TCK, is that a perk or is that, a negative, or what? Talk to me about that. Because my wife, she was able to explore the world. Her mom worked for an airline, so she got to fly around, but she wasn't at TCK. But luckily for me, she understands the concept of who I am and where I grew up and things like that.
Yeah.
But you got the, you won in that department in terms of Grant. And I met Grant. He's a badass.
Yeah.
I want to make sure. Yeah.
Do right.
I want to make sure that people understand that I know him because when I was in Shanghai for a couple of years, he was actually, I guess, stationed there because he was flying for. Yeah, he was based there.
Yeah.
He and I got to know each other a little bit. Great guy. I have nothing negative to say about him. In fact, before we went live, I was talking to him earlier. The last time I saw him was actually on a subway in Shanghai. But he's a great guy. But I want you to explain that. Like, do you think being married to a TCK, does that make married life easier? Does it make it more difficult? Does it kind of combine the two? Talk to us about that.
I'm actually kind of shocked to realize how many TCKs marry each other. There are more TAS kids married to other TAS kids than you can. I mean, it's insane. It's crazy how many TAS people are married to TAS people. It's just, there's a lot. Like there's people that when they get married, they have their wedding photos done at TAS.
Wow.
Yeah, like tons of different alumni that are all married to each other. It's just, it's nuts. And it is, it's so nice to have someone that totally understands it, knows. I mean, we know all the same people. We were at the same tournaments.
How did you two meet? I know you got alluded to that a little bit, but tell us how you met.
Yeah, so freshman year at IASS, we were in Singapore American School. We were at Ngee Polytechnic University for the track meet. And I was a freshman, Grant was a freshman, and I
are you guys the same age?
Same age, yeah. Okay. Like he's like 6 months older. I mean,
But you graduated same year? Same year?
Yeah, 1990, yeah. So we were in line, like I think girls 100-meter heats went first, and the boys were behind us. And I remember seeing this guy, and I'm like a sucker for blonde, and I'll admit it, blonde hair, blue eyes. I'm like, I'll do you. I'm Sarah. I mean, I'm kidding. But I'm like, let's go.
No, you're not.
No, you're not. I'm not kidding. Yeah, I'm not really.
No.
So
it's all good.
He had his socks like pulled up to his knees, like tube socks. Yeah. And I remember like that was like, he was like the only one that had tube socks on, pulled up really high. And I remember being like, what the, okay. And so I ran my heat, and I'd broken the IAS's record, and then he ran when the guys ran, and I was still kind of down near the finish line, like stretching or something. And when he ran, I was like, ooh, that dude's pretty fast. And I think he won his heat, and he was a freshman, and I was like, ooh, he's kind of hot. And he was, even the socks are kind of ugly, but I kind of like that. And I can do a little weird. So I remember I was talking to this guy that won another one of the heats from Jakarta. His name was Eddie Wingo. And he was insanely fast. And he walked up to me and he was like, hey, nice run. You broke the IASIS record. He's like, how old are you? And like, we just start chatting. And so he was from Jakarta. And so Grant walked over and I started talking to Grant and Eddie. And that's how I first met him. And then just kind of would talk to him throughout the tournament, just hi or whatever. And then the next year I see him at, it was soccer volleyball. So saw him, he was a volleyball player, and chatted with him at volleyball. And then,
so was I.
Yep. Yeah. And then track came around, which was in Taiwan that for sophomore year. And it was pouring rain and it was a miserable week. It was just this miserable rainy week. And so I remember hanging out with him during IASIS, like sitting on the bleachers, and he was like, where should we go to eat? And like just telling him about Taiwan a little bit. And then junior year was in Bangkok. And so that was when we really kind of connected more. It was IASIS Bangkok. It was in the stadium downtown. It was like 105 degrees. It was wicked hot. And so after a race, I went into the girls' bathroom and I was like, I stripped down. I had like just my like sports bra on and like my running tights, little shorts. And I was washing my hair, like getting wet in the sink. I was like, showering in the sink. So I was so hot. And Grant walks in the bathroom, the girls' bathroom. And he like walked right by me and he goes right into like a stall.
Why was he there?
Like, what the fuck? He didn't realize it was the girls' bathroom. He thought it was the boys' bathroom. I don't know. And he just walked right in. He really had to go, I guess. I don't know. So he came out and I'm like, hey man. He's like, holy shit, I'm in the girls' bathroom. I'm like, yeah,
he knew. He knew. I'm sorry.
Yeah, he totally knew.
Totally.
He was like, I'm gonna sneak a peek. Yeah. So the rest of the tournament, we were like laughing about that and hanging out. And then and Don Blevins, who's on there right
Don
now.
Blevins.
Grant, my husband Grant, housed with Julie and Don that year. I don't know if Don remembers, but Donnie, that was my husband.
By the way, Donnie's my age, and he's got some kick-ass daughters that are, I guess, at least a daughter that's collegiate level golfer.
Nice. Yeah. Awesome, Don. So we would just kind of at all the IASIS tournaments, we would always hang out. And so senior year, IASIS track, he'd asked me like, so I was dating this guy from TAS, this big German hunk.
Who?
You remember Thomas Freudendahl?
Of course I know Thomas. He and I played volleyball together.
Yeah. So Thomas and I dated for like a year. He was this big giant German. Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
Yes. My big German. Anyway, so during track, I was like hanging out with Grant like the whole track meet, and Thomas was there and he was not pleased.
No, he didn't like that.
No, he didn't like that. But Grant had asked me like, where are you going to college? And I was like, I'm going to run track at Ithaca College, whatever. And he was like, oh, great. And that was the last time I saw him. I was like, okay, well, bye. So then I went to college and I'm at Ithaca. And it was my sophomore year of college, second year at Ithaca, 1991, the fall of 91. And I went to my mailbox in my dorm, and my friend worked in the mailroom. And she was like, you got the strangest letter. I'm like, what? She's like, you got to see this. You got the weirdest letter. She's like, it just has your name on it. And then it says Ithaca College, Ithaca, New York. She's like, and your name is spelled wrong. I was like, what? She's like, yeah, here. So she's like, I was going to throw it away, but I was like, oh, it's Debbie. Oh, and I put it in your mailbox. I'm like, okay. And it said like Debby Krieger, spelled wrong, Ithaca College, Ithaca, New York. And that was it. So I like open this letter and it's from Grant. And he's like, hi, it's Grant Bever from Jakarta. Like, I was checking up and seeing how you liked college and how's track going. And I was just wondering what you were up to. And he's like, here's my phone number. Give me a call sometime. I'm in Florida. And I literally was like, holy shit. And my roommate was there. And I said, I looked at her and I'm like, this is my husband. Like this, I'm going to marry him. And she was like, what? You're fucking crazy. And I'm like, no, this is him. He just wrote me a letter and I'm going to marry him. And she was like, okay. So then I had to call him. And you know me, I got nothing. Yeah. I'm not nervous. Nothing bothers me. I can run naked down the street. Like, seriously, nothing.
Didn't you do that? I heard a rumor.
I have done that. I have done that, yes. So I get to my dorm room and my roommate's like, call him. And so I'm like, okay. So I think it was ding, right? So I call him and someone answers and I hang up. I was like, thank God they didn't have caller ID back then, right? So I hung up. Right. I was like, I can't do it. She's like, oh my God, you're an idiot. I must have called him like 4 or 5 times hanging up. And then I finally, at one time I called and I asked if Stacy was there. Is Stacy there? I don't know. They were like, no, I think you have the wrong number. Hung up. So finally, I got a little drunk and I got the courage to actually call. So he answers and he's like, I just have to ask, have you been calling and hanging up like the last week? And I was like, what? No, no, why would I do that? Like, that was the first lie I told him. There's been many, I'm sure. What's for dinner, honey? Sushi? I don't know. So I like it was hilarious. So we started calling and writing each other letters. And I still have like this giant box. He's always like, please burn that. I have this giant box of all the letters that we wrote each other because they're hilarious.
Well, this is pre-email
there was
or like
no
right
email.
email?
There was no email. There was no internet really. There was no any of that. There was just phone.
What year are we talking? 91, 92?
1991. Okay. So Christmas of 1991. Grant was going back to Jakarta. I was going to Taipei. Well, Grant said, so we'd been, talking on the phone and stuff. And he's like, well, I'll be in Singapore like overnight. I fly from Jakarta to Singapore, stay overnight. And then I fly Singapore back to Florida. And I was like, oh, cool. And I again, this was like lie number 5. I told him, I'm like, cool. I'll be in Singapore over Christmas too. That is so weird. And he's like, oh, no way. Really? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, oh my God, cool. Well, we got to meet up at the hotel where I'm staying at the Hilton right downtown. And I like on Orchard Road. And I was like, oh my God, okay. Like, just tell me when your flight arrives and stuff. And I'll meet you there because I'm going to be in Singapore visiting family friends. So I call my parents and I'm like, hey, Mom, Dad, I need to go to Singapore and stay with the Eagles for a few days over Christmas. And my dad's like, why? I'm like, I miss Tim so much. Again, line number like 17.
Okay. I gotta stop you. The Eagles were a TAS family that ended up moving to Singapore. So totally understand.
So I knew. So Tim and I would talk. So I knew Tim was going to be in Singapore, and so I was like, I miss Becca and Tom so much, and I need to see Timmy. Like, if I don't see Timmy, I'm just like, my heart will break. And my dad was like, okay, all right. I'm like, okay, so I need to go this day. Like these days. They were like, well, that's very specific, but okay. Oh my God, Dawn, that's awesome.
That is awesome.
That's so awesome, Donnie. Yeah. So my dad bought me a ticket to Singapore. I get to Singapore and I'm like, oh, the Eagles, yay. And then I say to Tim, okay, here's the deal. I'm meeting Grant Bever, at this hotel, and I need you to cover for me. And like, I'm going to disappear for a night. And he was like, you were so fucking like, really? I'm like, yeah, missed you so much. Love you. I'm out. Peace out. So I go to the hotel. Yeah. Grant's flight is late. So I'm like sitting in the lobby of this hotel. And I'm like, I actually like dressed nicer than normal, maybe combed my hair. I'm not sure.
Did you have a skirt on?
No, I did not. It was hot. It was Singapore. I had shorts on. It was hot. It was like 95 degrees. Yeah. So he walks in and he's with another guy. He's with one of his best friends, Nigel Williams, who went to JIS, who we're still really good friends with. And he's with Nigel. And Nigel was the same thing, flying through Singapore. And so Nigel was staying in the hotel with him. So I was like, hi. And he was like, oh my God, hi. And so I was so nervous. We went out to dinner. We hung out till like 2 a.m. And so we were getting in putting him in a cab so he could go back to the hotel, and I getting in a cab to go back to the Eagles. And he kissed me on the cheek.
Hey.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I was
That's
like,
love. That's love right there.
And I was like, well, this didn't go well. and I was like, damn it, what did I do? So I just thought I totally blew the whole night, because he was like, that was great. It's so good to see you. And I was like, So I go back to Taiwan, and I go back to college, and I get to Ithaca. And when I got to my dorm room, my roommate was already there, and there was a huge bouquet of roses, like waiting at the dorm room, and from Grant. And he was like,
nice.
Really great seeing you. Call me as soon as you get in, missed you. It was so awesome. And that was, yeah. So then I went down to visit him for spring break at Embry-Riddle. And that's when we really started dating.
And the rest is history, right?
And the rest is history. We have been long distance for years. We were long distance for years. And Yep.
That's awesome.
The TCKs, they get it. Again, they just get it. And, like Camille and her husband, there's so many that are married. I mean, my friend Sandy, she was class of 89, and her husband, Mark, I think Mark was class of 87.
Sandy Shambron?
Sandy Liu. Okay. So she's, let's see, she dated Matt Lemmy in high school.
Mike's brother. Yep.
That's right. Yep. So she's married to an alumni. There's so many. Paul and Krista, they dated in high school, and they got married. They were my year. I mean, there's so many at TAS. I think more at TAS than other schools, maybe. I don't know, but there's a lot.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And that's some of those. So we're going to do this again. I'm not even close to being done with you yet. And we're going to do this again. Let's okay, so that's awesome. I thank you and by the way, those of you that are listening in, I met Grant. He's a badass. I mean, he and I we were able to hook up in Shanghai and whatnot, but I want to talk about your kids now, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
So it's obviously you're a TCK, Grant's a TCK.
Mm-hmm.
If I get this right, your kids weren't necessarily raised overseas, but partially raised overseas, right? They did kind of tap into it, right? So explain that. Yeah. What did you do with your kids?
So it was really interesting. Like of course, my kids knew from the time they were little that Grant and I had a different upbringing, right? Because they go to grandma's house. Grandma's house is all Chinese stuff, and like Grant's parents' house is all Indonesian stuff, and like it's yes, Randy, I did. Sandy's gonna kill me. She's gonna kill me.
Yeah.
So my kids knew that we had a different upbringing, and they were.
Do they get it? Do they understand it?
They totally get it, and they would get mad because I would say things like, my kids love. My older son especially loves science, and he speaks Chinese. So he took Mandarin.
Fluently?
Yeah. He's awesome. Pretty fluent. I would say he's better than I am at this point. Like he's really good. So he would sometimes he'd get a little mad because I'd be like, oh my God, like TAS has the best science program. Like you got to check out, look what they're doing at the, I'd like pull up the website and they'd be like, thanks mom. You're giving us such a great education here in America. He'd say things like, Oregon schools are ranked 45th in the nation. I'd be like, oh, okay, I'm sorry. Like they were kind of pissed that they missed out on a TCK life.
But they ended up in China, right?
So then Grant was in Shenzhen, and we had the opportunity to go and live in Shenzhen. So it was hard because my one son was a junior and the other one was a sophomore. So kind of in these important years in high school. So we were on a waiting list at the international school in Shenzhen, and it was very long, and there was no way we were going to get in. So they were doing online school through their high school here in Oregon.
But they were overseas.
Yeah.
Kind of homeschooled, or how's that?
So they homeschooled. Yeah. So I basically was online homeschooling, like what all the kids are doing now. Like they have an online program in Oregon for kids that don't want to go attend classes in person. So they had to do that, and those classes, by the way, sucked. Like they were not great.
Yeah.
They finished a semester of school in like 2 months because it was so easy. The online school is so easy. But they got to experience, we were living in mainland China, which was, mainland is a whole different world. It was a different ballgame. But we would go to Hong Kong all the time. We went to Taiwan. We traveled all over, and they got to experience some of that. Not the full experience because they weren't actually at a school, unfortunately, but they did get some of that international experience. And I think it made them understand, of course, where we went to school and that kind of thing, but it also still made them a little mad because we went to TAS and my kids were like, this is freaking amazing. The campus is sick. The campus is
ridiculous,
out of this world.
Especially, the new school, right? The
new school, new campus. It really is it's really nice.
Yeah, I went back a couple of years ago. I'm trying to think, like 3 years ago, maybe. Yeah, Tim was with me.
That was even before the Tech Cube, the new Tech Cube.
Yeah,
Holy shit!
It's insane.
That thing is
insane.
Unreal. It's unreal. So so my kids get it. They totally get it. But they're American. They were raised in the U.S. mostly. The majority of the time. They really only had a year of international stuff. But like this Christmas, they came out and we went to Japan and Taiwan. They came to Taiwan for Christmas. So they've traveled a ton and they've seen a lot of it, which is great. But they didn't get the full TCK experience, unfortunately. And I feel guilty about that. I feel guilty.
Yeah,
I really do.
Yeah, but they at least got to see it, right? And that's actually brings me to one of my questions, and you just kind of answered it. But they didn't have exactly the same experience as you did, or Grant did, right?
No.
Yeah, but having said that, they also got to experience to a point, right? They get it ish, right?
They get it.
Is that fair to say?
Yeah, they get it ish. Totally. Okay. Yeah.
All right, so the next question is probably the biggest one that hits home to me because it's the one that I've struggled with personally, and I know that this is the 9th show that I've done with this, and every single person that I've talked to, this is the biggest issue that they face as a TCK, and it's kind of deep, but I don't want you to make it deep if you don't feel like making it deep, but it's the acclimation process. It's and I know you've done it twice now. Actually, you've done it as a college student, and you're someone who spent your formative years, kindergarten through all the way through 12th grade at international schools, and then you were just thrown back into the States. And we kind of joked about it earlier, but you went to a couple different colleges, and I totally understand that. But if you could, once I get done talking here, if you could explain the acclimation process, the struggles you went through, how it felt being, even though you looked the part, like I did. I looked the part. I was supposed to act the part, and I had no clue what the hell I was doing when I first got back. And I've done it twice, just like you have. I've done it twice as a college student. But then I obviously, this, because you and I, last time I saw you in person, last time I saw you in person was actually in Shanghai. But we've done it twice. You and I have both done it twice, and Grant as well. But if you could talk about the acclimation process, not only just the college years, but as coming back to the States as an adult, and the struggles and the frustrations and whatever it is you felt, it's all you right now. Yeah.
So, college was a huge adjustment, of course. And depending on your personality, you can kind of, you either kind of isolate yourself, or you embrace it and you fake it till you make it. And so my big thing was I was like, fake it till you make it. And sometimes I would tell people, like, they'd say, where are you from? And I'd say, California. Right? Because trying to explain it gets so tiring time and time again, trying to explain to people, like, no, I'm not from Thailand. I'm from Taiwan. Yes, I am American. No, I was not raised in a grass hut. No, I don't eat
with,
rice
with
all
water
the time.
buffaloes. Yeah,
Water
I got
buffaloes.
that.
No, I don't
Yeah.
wear a funny hat.
Yeah.
No, I don't speak English with an accent. I am American. No, my parents are American. Yes, I am American, but I just never lived here. Like, I got so tired of explaining it and
I got you, but you,
questions.
but you don't look Chinese.
Yeah, but you don't look Chinese.
No shit. Like
Yeah.
that's listen, right? So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, there are Americans that live in other countries, you fucking morons. Like, it was, I mean, I just, you
Yeah.
get so
Yeah.
tired of it. So then it was just easier to say, yeah, no, I'm from California. And I was in New York. So people would be like, California, cool. And then they'd ask me stupid questions about California, and I would just make shit up. I was like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, what high school did you go to? And I was like, pretend I was my cousin. And I'd be like, yeah. So
Yeah.
it was just, it was very hard. Also, like the whole like dating scene, and like that was bizarre to me.
Yeah.
The US, whatever, like dating, it was weird. I didn't know any of the slang. Excuse me. I didn't know, the right TV shows. So even when I would fake it till I make it kind of thing, you could tell. Eventually someone could tell. And my roommate was helpful. I did have a good roommate who was like super helpful at like, okay, let me teach you about TV. So, it was
because you didn't speak English or what? Like,
yeah. Well, she was like, okay, these are the shows that people were been watching, and like this is what was that? Not Dr. Phil, but Phil. Oh my God, he had really big glasses. It was a stupid talk
show. Phil Donahue.
Phil Donahue. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Why do I know that?
And
right?
Sally Jesse Raphael.
Right?
So,
yeah.
Like all these things that I just knew nothing about.
Mm-hmm.
Because we didn't have the internet. I couldn't watch. I didn't know what Homecoming was. I remember when someone was talking about Homecoming, and I was like, what is that? And just feeling so stupid, right? And so there were things like that you just had to push through. And like they were laughing at me because I'd never seen snow before. And I was totally freaking out when it snowed. Like I was so excited. And everyone was just laughing. And I'm like, why are you laughing? Like, this is a big deal. Look at the white stuff coming out of the sky. It's a miracle, So it was hard. And so what do? We reach out to our other TCK friends.
Yep.
Right. So I was always on the phone calling everybody. Oh, here's another thing I did. Sorry. It's COVID. No, it's allergy season in Oregon right now, and like it's killing me. So there was a payphone right outside on our floor, on our dorm.
Payphone. And what's a payphone?
A payphone. I know. So my friend from International School of Bangkok, Mike Howler, who is he was at Cornell. So we had been having lunch, and he's like, "Oh my God, this dude at Cornell figured out this way to rig a payphone so you can make long distance calls for free." And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah. So I've been calling Bangkok, like I'm calling everybody. He's like, and it's free. And I was like, holy shit. I'm like, teach me how. So there was it was like, I don't know, 0000111. It was something, some Cornell student engineer figured out how to game the payphone. So I get back to my dorm, and who do I call? The first person I call the TAS school office. Right? And I'm like, hi, can you call, I can't remember who I'm like, Aaron Mahan, I don't know. I was like, can you tell them to come to the office? Because I have a message for them. They were like, who is this? I was like, it's Debbie Krieger. They were like, aren't you in college in the States? I was like, yeah, let me talk to Mr. McPherson. And I was not kidding you. Like every other day I would call the TAS office and just chat with the secretary or Mr. McPherson, Mr. Bennis. I'd be like, Mr. Bennis, what's up? Yeah. So then I would call sometimes this was just super fun. We had a really funny maid. Our Amma was really funny. She was bizarre. So I would call my house and I'd have all my friends. So this was a way to like make friends, to like make people laugh. I'd call my Amma And I would be like, Aki, it's Debbie. Is mom there? And he would always say every time, Debbie no home. Debbie in college. And I'd be like, no. Okay, so this is Debbie. And I want to talk to my mom today. Yeah. And she'd be like, no, Debbie no home. Debbie in college. I'd be like, Aki, this is me. It's me. And she would hang up on me. So then I would do this like 2-3 times a week. And then my dad was finally like, your phone bill is going to be crazy. You need to stop calling. And I was like, no, Dad. So here's the thing. It's free. And he was like, what? And I'm like, yeah. So this guy, so like explain the whole thing to him. And he's like, oh my God, you're going to get arrested. And I'm like, no, I'm not. He's like, eventually someone's going to figure it out. And they're going to look at the payphone on your floor. And they're going to see all these calls to Taiwan. And they're going to be like, who is calling Taiwan? Oh, duh, it's the girl from Taiwan, right? He's like, you're going to get in trouble. I'm like, no, I won't. Everybody's doing it at Cornell. I'm the only one doing it here. I'm not going to get caught. Well, like 2 weeks later, Mike at Cornell, my friend from ISB, calls me. And he's like, you got to stop with the payphone thing. He's like, we got busted. I'm like, what? And he's like, yeah, the phone company, like ATCK, whoever it was, they like there's a huge scandal at Cornell now, and we all got like there's like they're trying to figure out who was making all these calls. He's like, stop calling. I'm like, oh my God. So that was the end of that. But so calling like that, any way you could connect to other TCKs was what we would do. And that was like, that's the way I assimilated. And it was hard and it was rough. But yeah. Actually, drinking was a good way of assimilating too, because we could all drink really well because we'd been drinking since 7th grade. So I could like outdrink all these guys. They were like light beer, and I was like, tequila. Like, why are you drinking light beer? I'm like, give me a San Miguel and a shot of tequila, and give me 6 more. Like,
we're good,
right?
yeah,
we're good. So, but it was, it's hard. It was hard. It was hard.
Oh, you're killing me. I'm laughing with you, not at you. Laughing with you.
I laugh at myself. It's okay.
No, but I get it.
Stupid shit.
Yeah, but who hasn't? Like us TCKs, who hasn't? I totally get it. Wow. The fact that we're 2 hours, I want to kind of get a couple of questions out of you before we call it a night, because we're definitely gonna do this again.
Okay.
So many questions I didn't get to, so trust me, we're gonna do this again.
Okay.
Let's talk about advice for TCKs that are currently overseas, either overseas or about to be told that they're. Guess what? Guess where we're moving, right? Yeah. So I want you to kind of talk to them right now. It's not about me, it's not about you, but I want you to kind of give advice for TCKs who are currently either there or about to be told that they're about to move overseas. So go ahead.
I would say kids that are about to go to the States for college or Europe for college, just be as open as you can to new experiences. They don't know, and you have to be forgiving of their stupidity. Because honestly, they don't know. You have to be like, okay.
Look, I told you when I got back to the States, I was asked like, oh, Taiwan, I've been to California. Like, what?
Yeah.
What?
Like, is that in Indiana? No, it's not in Indiana. Yeah. So you have to be forgiving of their geographical stupidity. And you have to be forgiving of their lack of experience. Because honestly, again, the whole thing you need to remember is we are so fortunate. We are spoiled and lucky with the best education, and we traveled the world, and we had this amazing their teachers loved us. Our teachers cared about us and wanted us to do well and learn. You don't get that all the time at a school in inner city, wherever, right? You don't. And so we have to be forgiving of their maybe lack of knowledge of what we went through. And we also have to think about what you say, and not come off as an egotistical asshole. So you can't talk down to them because they've never been on an airplane before.
It's that walking that fine line, right? Yeah.
And you can't be like, what? You've never been out of the country? You don't have a passport? Like, you have to be like, wow, oh my gosh, well, you know what? You're going to get a passport someday and you're going to love traveling. And I hope you go to Asia because you would love visiting Asia. The people are so lovely. Like, you have to put a positive spin on how fortunate we are being TCKs.
Totally.
And so you just have to, like, I was always thinking to myself, forgive them for what they don't know. And then don't be an asshole. Like, I would tell myself constantly, don't be an asshole. Just don't. Stop being an asshole. Like,
I mean, we started this conversation by talking about the fact that, like, everybody's got a story, right? Ours just has to be a little pinch different, and that's exactly what it is. You know, it's I never thought of myself, and I give credit to my parents for this. They never allowed my brother and I to think we were higher than high or lower than low. We were somewhere in the middle. It was just happened to be our story. You know, you're privileged, yes. But it's not the entire story, you know, but you just got completely lucky for what you were able to see. Shit. I mean, shit. I was going to so many different countries before the age of 10. Like, I mean, come on now. Like, it's stuff that people dream about. Like, there's people in the States like thinking like, I'm saving up to maybe go to the Philippines or maybe go to somewhere.
Mexico.
I got to see, I've never even been to Mexico, which is so ironic. Right. But that's exactly my point. Like, we were so privileged in so many ways, and not that we took it for granted, but I mean, I truly thankful. I guess that's the only word I can ever say is thankful. So
absolutely. So I just tell kids that, you know, that like TAS kids that are graduating or other kids that just you know, take all the dumb comments with a grain of salt, and then just be open, be as open as you can, and just be willing to learn, and don't isolate yourself. Like, let's say you're a Taiwanese American kid and you're going back to the States, and all of a sudden you've been a majority in Taiwan. You're an Asian majority your entire school career, and then they go to college in the States and they're suddenly a minority for the first time in their lives. And it is shocking and it's hard, and they need to, it's a different world right now. And I'm sure they're going to see some xenophobia and some racism, and it's really hard. So they can't isolate themselves, and they can't only surround themselves with other Asian kids that they feel comfortable with. Just branch out, be a joiner.
Yeah.
You can totally reinvent yourself when you go to college if you want. Join clubs. Just be as open as you can, and just try and enjoy the experience. But it's hard, and it's going to be even harder for these kids right now.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be the first to admit that. Like, when I came back to the States, I mean, I looked the part. No offense to your height, but I was 6'2". I 6'2". I played baseball. Like, even on my college baseball team, I was the outcast because I didn't grow up in the surrounding areas. I grew up. They looked at me like, "Wait, you grew up in Asia? You don't look Chinese." I'm like, "I know I'm not, but here we go." Like, so I totally agree with you. You know, it's not easy. It's
not easy.
It's the first time in your life. Yeah, it's the first time in your life you're probably gonna feel that you don't belong.
Yeah.
You know,
1000%.
There's people like you. There's people like me. We totally get it, and it's doable. Now, having said that, you've done it twice. I've done it twice. How was it the second time coming back as an adult? Acclimation process wise.
Going to Taiwan or coming back?
Either way, coming back to the States. Like, I know you live in Bend, and I know you've done okay there, but you and I both off the record, we've talked about just the concept of it, once you're at TCK, it's in your blood. It's who you are, right?
Yeah.
Traveling the world, getting to see different places. I mean, shit, you've gone back to Taipei. You've lived there, what, 18 months? Is that what you said?
Yeah, we were there.
Yeah, I mean, the travel bug, the concept of living abroad is normal for people like you and I.
Yep.
I have a hard time being in one place for more than 2 years. It's driving me crazy right now, and that was even before COVID, right?
Yes.
What's your take on being now an adult TCK back in the States? Everything you've known, you've got 2 kids, you've got a husband who's luckily for you is a TCK. Talk about that experience.
So we love to travel, and we the same thing. You get you're someplace for like 2 or 3 years. I make fun of Grant all the time because he usually because he's a pilot, so he's everywhere. Like, he travels like every day, basically.
Yeah.
And so sometimes for him, I'm like, okay, I'm scheduling our next vacation. And he's like, I just want to stay home.
Right.
Because he's on the road all the time in hotels and stuff. And I'm like, no.
By the way, when you say he's on the road, he's actually flying overseas.
Yes, overseas,
right? Okay.
90% of the time. Yeah. He's rarely in the U.S. This has been so unusual. He's been in Bend for like 2 months, and this is the longest stretch he's been home in probably 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, our neighbors are cracking up because they're like, "Oh my God, you do have a husband." I was like, "I told you." Told you. They were always like, the ring is fake. Like, you're not married. I'm like, no, he's not my boyfriend. I swear.
Yeah.
So for him, it's really interesting. And it's just because of his career. Sometimes he just wants to relax and be home. Yeah. And where I'm like, no, let's go. Like when he was in Afghanistan, when he came back from Afghanistan, he was home in Bend for like a week and a half. And then I rented a house in Costa Rica, and we spent 3 months in Costa Rica because the boys and I were like, we need to get out. Like we need to. My kids love to travel.
There you go.
We were like, guys, I was like, Grant, sorry, we're going to Costa Rica. I rented a house in Costa Rica, and we're spending the summer there.
That's
he was like, oh, okay. So he does what I say.
What? I'm shocked.
I'm kidding. No,
you're not. No, you're not. But that's okay.
But it's hard when I'm back again. Even my friends in the States, a lot of them don't get it. They're like, I just come back. They're like, you were gone. Like we literally, we leave. We just like lock our house and leave it. And then my mom lives down the street. And so my mom comes and like waters, like she literally, all my plants, everything. She just waters my plants like every 2 weeks or whatever. And I come back and my house is exactly like I left it.
That's awesome.
It's crazy. It's weird, right? Not many people do that. And like, I just go and I rent an apartment in Taiwan, and we get all moved in, and I buy furniture and I get all set up. And then I'm like, oh, we're moving again. I'm like, oh, we're going to China, or, oh, we're going to, Costa Rica, or, oh, we're going to, Grant's going to Singapore. It's nothing to me to up and move. It's nothing. I'm like, okay, cool. Let's do it.
I wish I could be scratching my head and understand, like, don't understand at all what you're saying, but I totally get it. You and I talked about this. Like, I get that like 2-year itch, right?
Yeah,
it's 2 to 3 years. And I'm like, like something, I can't put a finger on it, but I know what it is. Like, I know it's because of who I am and how I was raised. So, listen, we're not done yet, but we are going to talk. We're going to totally do another one because we could talk for 4 or 5 hours, you and I. Because I remember talking to you and being in Hong Kong in one of those Christmas tournaments, and you and I wasn't actually.
We went shopping together.
Stanley Night Market, or Stanley Night. Yeah. You bought that. Yeah, I got that shirt, and to this day, I don't know where the shirt is, but I still think of you whenever I think of that shirt. So
I was that's the shirt. Buy that shirt. Look good on you. Yeah.
That was only about 25 years ago, but no big deal, right?
Yeah.
No big deal. Yeah. But let's talk. Most of this is supposed to be spent on TCK and the aspects of being a TCK and everything else. But when you wrote that bio of yourself, you've had some badass jobs stateside. I'm sorry.
I've had some weird jobs. I have. Weird. And that's another TCK thing. I think I like variety. Yeah,
as you should. I get it totally, because I get that itch. I totally understand, but I want people to understand that if I understood you right, you've owned a food company. You've been the owner of a beer bar. Is that right?
Yeah, pub. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the badass of all badass here is you were a DJ for 4 different Bend, Oregon. How the hell did that happen? Talk to us about that.
That was so weird. When I had my food business, I like a radio salesperson came in and was like trying to sell me commercial time, like ads. And I was like, yeah, I'll do ads, but I have to voice them myself. Like I was just being an asshole.
Hell yeah.
Right? I was like, no, I want to do it. I want to do the talking. And they were like, okay, like they don't care. They just want my money. So I remember going into the radio station and working with actually this guy, Eric, and voicing my own commercial. And just like loving it. It was hilarious. Like just having so much fun. And Eric was he's like this super guy. And so then, I don't know, it was like a month later, the guy called me and he was like, hey, do you want to come in on the morning DJ said, do you want to come in on the morning show? Like bring me some food and we'll like eat and like talk about your food during the morning show. And I was like, yeah, hell yeah. So I like came into the morning show.
Yeah.
With Dave and we're like, I don't remember what I made. I think enchiladas or something. And so we're like eating and we're just like riffing and doing the morning show. And he was like, okay, so I want you to come back again. And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, okay, so we're going to do this like every couple of weeks. I want you to come in and do this. I'm like, all right. And so we did that for like, I don't know, 6 months. And it was just so much fun. And then they had fired a DJ. And he called me and he was like, I was thinking about, I know you have like zero radio experience or whatever, but would you be interested in doing this? And I was like, I can't, because like I'm an idiot. And I think he's like, you know, it's like it was on one station at the time. It was from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. I'm like, dude, I have a job. Like I'm working from 10 a.m. to 2. I can't do that. He's like, idiot. Only the morning shows are live. He's like, all the rest of the shows are recorded during the day. He's like, you just record them. He's like, you can record them whatever time you want. I was like, what? Okay. So I literally got like 2 days of training from Dave. I go in and I would get off work around 10 o'clock at night and I would go right to the radio station and I would record my show for the next morning. And I did. So I was on a pop station for the first year. And then like the second year, I would go in at like 10 p.m. and I would record till 1 a.m. and I would do the news. So that was my favorite. It was hilarious that I was doing the news. It's too freaking funny. The pop station, the light, like ladies light station, rock and roll's greatest hits, 105.7. So I did the oldies station. And then occasionally I would sub in on the country station.
That's awesome. Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Favorite, which was hilarious. Because I'm like, know nothing about country music. And again, radio is like fake it till you make it. 1000%. So I was like doing radio like crazy. And then I finally closed my bar and sold my location to this pizza place. And so then I did radio full time. And so I would go in and I would do the news live from 4 a.m. till like 7 a.m. And then I would pop into all the morning shows, the 3 different morning shows. Then I would go record, usually like at 9 a.m. I would start recording for my 10 a.m. show. And so I was 10 to 2 on that station. And then I was 3 to 5 on another station. And then 7 to 10 on another station. And it was insane.
That is awesome.
And I loved it. And it was so much fun.
Yeah.
Radio pays garbage. I don't know how any radio people make any money. And the only reason I was able to do it, because again, Grant has a good job. So that was very fortunate. But I can't believe what they pay. Like, it's terrible. It's really terrible. They work their asses off and they make no money.
My wife actually dabbled in that for a little while. And she said the same thing. Like, unless you're on-air personalities in a big market, you make shit.
Big market. Yeah.
So,
but it's a lot of fun.
Oh yeah. No. She got that too. Well, listen, we've actually, believe it or not, it's we're over 2 hours, and I can talk to you forever. Like everything you're saying.
We'll do it again another time.
Hell yeah. Soon, because I mean, people want to hear from.
I've got nothing going on.
No, it's good. Nothing. Hey, ironically, me either. Well, who would have thought? I like to kind of conclude this. I think I know what you're gonna say, but let's just see what happens. But I don't know if you watched the other shows, but I like to conclude this by, I'm a beer guy. Ironically, you are someone who has
I'm a beer girl. I like
dabbled. Yeah, you've dabbled in some beer. You know, you and I have actually dabbled in some beer.
Yeah.
However, let's say you had one moment in time to actually have a beer with someone with us still or not with us still.
Mm-hmm.
Who would it be and why?
I mean, obviously, I'd have a beer with my dad, who is dead, that would be amazing. If I had to pick someone alive, it would be Marshall Mathers,
Really?
Mr. Eminem.
I
love him.
What?
I hope he's
What?
listening. Marshall.
I'm sure I'll get him on next time. So
okay. Yeah, it would be Marshall Mathers, but no,
Yeah.
if dad would be my dad for sure. Like
Why?
he would totally rip it up and have so much fun. Yeah.
Can
and
I
it'd just be nice to tell him about my kids. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
awesome.
totally. And I want to kind of dabble into that, not to cut you off, but I want to make sure that people know you and I talked about this before we went on air, but your dad actually is a significant figure in my life. He was the first person. I was a 9th grade 14-year-old dipshit who happened to play softball / baseball. Okay. And I didn't want to wait around and be part of the TAS team. So your dad offered me an opportunity to play for his I'm trying to think
his men's league team.
His men's league team. And I'm trying to think because I'm trying to think it was an AO. No, it wasn't AOL. Who the hell?
American President Lines, APL.
Thank you. APL. Yeah. And I've never forgotten that. Like your dad, I was a 14-year-old zit-faced dipshit. Let's be honest, right? But your dad, like when he asked me if I could play, I was the token 14-year-old playing on a men's league softball team while my school team was playing on another team. And look, your dad, I knew him. I don't want to say well, but everything whenever I think of your dad, nothing but positive thoughts. He had that rugged voice. He had that rough voice, but what a sweetheart. Your dad was just a sweetheart. Yeah. And he made me feel so much bigger than I was. And I was like I said, I was a 14-year-old and I've never forgotten that. And your mom equally as much. I know your mom a little bit, but she is someone who my mom knew well. And just both your parents. I mean, they were good people, as I hopefully people think of my parents that way. But it's just your dad was just such a great guy and so good to me, and your mom was equally as supportive. And obviously, look who they produced, you and your sister. So I mean, I totally get it. So I just want you to know that
a doctor and a doctor. They produced a doctor.
Don't sell yourself short. Don't sell yourself short. No, don't sell yourself short. You're a badass. And I mean, of all the people I've had on so far, yours has generated the most interaction with people here typing. So look at Randy right there.
They're all my Taiwan peeps, man. Got my Randy and my Iris. I got my Taiwan peeps up there.
Yeah, I gotta write Randy real quick. So hold on, we're not done yet, but totally old school.
Yes.
And
that was that they had that container. So there was the container that was the food bar, and that was at the right on the side of the field. And that's my mom was working for Crown Van Lines, and they donated the container so that they could have the little food thing. And Crown Van Lines is still there, the moving company, and they did my shipment back to Bend just last month. It was awesome.
No, but the funny thing is I sit here and think one of the cool pictures I came across a couple of years ago was my dad and myself sitting at the old school watching softball. It was before I played, and your dad asked me to play, but we were at the old school and we were sitting right next to that big old. It was the Boosters. Basically, it was the Boosters hot dog venue.
Yeah, the hot dog.
Remember that? Yeah. So, but that's one of the my favorite pictures of my dad and myself. And the scary thing is to think of my dad and I. He was about the same age I am right now. So, I have no business being my age, as I'm sure you feel the same way. So, but
those were the best damn hot dogs.
Hell yeah. That's why I went. But Sundays were spent at the field watching. I wasn't playing, but watching softball, men's softball league in Taipei. So, but that's who I wanted to be like. And your generation, I mean, you're a couple years older than me, but even your sister's generation, those are my heroes, man. And it's just
they're all amazing. They're still amazing people. They're awesome.
Yeah, Tim's brother. Tom Eagle, Dave Wanger, people like that. I mean, those were who. Michael Jordan aside, like all that stuff, but like the reality to me was those kind of people, like those guys that those are who I looked up to as a kid. And yeah. So listen, it's been almost 2.5 hours. We still have people chiming. Oh, looks like your mom. Hey, look at this.
Oh, hi, Mom.
Say hi.
She learned some things.
She learned some things. That's awesome.
Mom,
well,
I'm gonna get some pictures for Ben. Don't hide the pictures from me.
No, we need them more. But let's do this again. The last thing I want to say is there anything else for this episode? Because you're definitely going to be on. Oh, look, your mom and boom.
Yeah. Hi, Sharon.
There we go. There's my mom.
I've got stories about your mom. I tormented her at our high school graduation.
I believe that.
I was the one that came up with the marbles. So, yeah.
She talks about that. I know exactly what you're talking about.
That was me.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome. No,
we'll do it another time.
Please.
We've got many TAS stuff to talk about.
Please. Oh, we're not even. I don't even think we got halfway through everything I wanted to get through, but that's all right. But listen, is there? Thank you. First of all, thank you for doing this, and we're definitely going to do it again. That goes without saying. But is there anything else you want to say to the people watching right now?
No, just my TAS. I've only been gone since like March 5th. I've been back in the States, and I'm like, I want to go back to Taiwan. Not only is it much safer there, the COVID and everything, Taiwan's got their shit together. It's like you just get off the airplane and you smell it and you're home. It's Taiwan.
That's funny you say that, because as soon as I got to Shanghai, I haven't felt that humidity hit me right in my face as soon as I got off the airplane. I was lucky enough when I was in Shanghai, I was able to go back to, oh, look, you'll know this guy.
Yeah, of course. Joel and I talk all the time.
Go.
He's my tiger sugar. Hi, Joel. You're my tiger sugar.
There's
awesome. A bubble tea place called Tiger Sugar.
That's awesome.
It's in Hong Kong and Taiwan, and Joel and Suzanne and I we're Tiger Sugars. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yep. Mom's got one more thing to say to you.
Oh yeah. I'm sorry, Sharon. I didn't do it on purpose.
Yeah, you did, but it's all good.
I did do it on purpose.
Yeah, you did. It looks like Ratsburgers here as well. So, yeah.
Yeah. I know. Mr. Is my favorite teacher ever.
Yeah. He was a little bit before my time, and I think they left before I did. But I know who they are. I definitely know who they are. Listen, you are awesome. You're badass, and we're gonna do this again.
Yeah. Anytime.
We truly, this is awesome, but we only got to about a third of what I wanted to talk to you about.
Okay. We'll do it again.
We'll do it again. And people were so excited to hear you and see you, but I just want to give you about a minute or even less than that. Just whatever you want to say right now, whatever you want to talk to the people about, it's all you.
Well, anyone message me anytime on Facebook, whatever. And Tigers Forever. We're the best. SAS sucks. And sorry, that's so mean. I've been drinking. That's so mean. And I miss everybody in Taiwan. And I'll be back because Grant flies there all the time. So I will be back.
I'm jealous. Yeah. I am hoping to get back one of these days as well, either doing this, what I'm doing right now, or just as a teacher or whatever, whatever works. I can't wait to get back as well. I was luckily enough when I was in Shanghai, it was only an hour away. So Tim Wanger and I and his wife and his kids, and we were able to go back to TAS, and that's already been 3 years ago, which is crazy to think. But actually, that might even been 4 years ago. Time flies, right? But it feels, you go there and it feels like totally a different world, and yet at the same time, it feels exactly the same. So, but that's one of the beauties of being who we are and what we were connected to. So, listen, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Absolutely. We're going to do this again. I swear to that, because we're almost 2.5 hours in. I promised you an hour and a half. Thank you for putting up with me, just talking freely. But it's awesome. And I have no problem with that. But we'll definitely do this again. Maybe in a couple weeks, maybe in a month or so. But having said that, the rest of you that are watching right now live, and who have been watching, thank you so much. Most of you are TA. Yeah, most of you are TAS folks, and TAS is always going to be a part of who we are. It's just that simple. But if you didn't get to see the whole thing, this will be replayed on BenThere.org. It'll also be replayed on YouTube, BenThere.YouTube. You can Google that. But Debbie, thank you so much.
Thank
and
you.
I know it's not as late. I guess it's only 8:30 for you, but let's do this again. All right.
Okay, sounds good.
You
Everybody
are
be safe
awesome.
out there.
Absolutely. Yeah, totally.
Kidding. I'm kidding.
We never even talked about the humor side of it, because that's when I think of Debbie, and we even talked about this. I even put that on the preview. Like, we're going to talk about humor, but I hope those of you that are watching showed that, like, I couldn't quit laughing at this whole thing. So that's Debbie Krieger. So thank you. The rest of you that are watching, thank you. Yeah, thank you for paying attention. And like I said, this will be replayed on BenThere.org. It'll be replayed on BenThere on the YouTube channel, and obviously through Facebook. So thank you all. We will talk to you again soon. Be safe. Debbie just said that. I completely back that up. Be safe right now. It's a crazy world right now. It's a good world right now, but be safe. And you all take care. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.